500-year-old frozen mummy on the mountain of death that challenges human history. Hello, and welcome to the Ancient History Channel. My friends, have you ever wondered what would happen if the history of humankind that we have trusted for so long turned out to be only part of the truth? If there were ever an archaeological discovery powerful enough to send chills down scientists' spines, strong enough to force the entire academic world to re-examine what has long been considered established knowledge, then this is exactly the story we are about to explore today. It is a story that goes beyond mummies, touching the fragile boundary between science, belief, and the brutal consequences of ancient faith. And trust me, the deeper we go, the harder it will be to look away. In 1999, on the summit of Lifeless volcano, one of the most extreme environments on Earth, rising to an elevation of approximately 22,110 feet above sea level, right on the border between Chile and Argentina, a team of archaeologists led by Dr. Johann Reinhard made a discovery that stunned the world. Amid relentless snow, freezing winds, and temperatures capable of killing a human being within minutes, they found three remarkably well-preserved child mummies, miraculously frozen for more than 500 years. These children were not nameless. Researchers gave them names tied closely to history. The oldest, a girl estimated to be between 13 and 15 years old, was named the Lifeless Maiden. A young boy, around 4 to 5 years old, became known as the Lifeless Boy. And a younger girl, whose story is no less tragic, was named the Lightning Girl. Among them, however, it was the Maiden, the adolescent girl, who left the scientific community truly astonished. When archaeologists opened the burial chamber, the Maiden was found sitting cross-legged, her head slightly bowed forward, her hands resting neatly in her lap, as if she had merely drifted into sleep. She wore a feathered headdress, her hair carefully braided. Surrounding her were offerings of gold, silver, finely woven textiles, and food containers, clear signs that she was no ordinary victim. But what truly left scientists frozen in disbelief lay inside her body. During examination, researchers discovered that the Maiden's internal organs were almost completely intact. Her brain was preserved. And astonishingly, there was still blood inside her heart. Yes, you heard that correctly. After more than 500 years, this mummy retained biological traces that should have disappeared centuries ago. Dr. Emma Brown, an archaeologist at the University of Bradford in the United Kingdom, described her reaction. The three children looked as if they had died only weeks or even hours earlier. When I looked at the girl's hands, her fingers still covered in skin and flesh, I genuinely felt chills. They looked no different from the hands of a living person. These may be the best preserved mummies ever found in the world. So what happened to these three children? According to researchers, they were victims of an ancient ritual known as capacocha, a sacrificial ceremony practiced by the Inca Empire, a civilization that once ruled vast regions of South America. The Inca believed that sacrificing pure children, especially young virgins, would appease the gods and protect the empire from natural disasters, disease, and supernatural forces. In Inca culture, girls who were chosen were separated from their families upon reaching puberty and placed under the strict supervision of priestesses. They were regarded as sacred beings. Yet for that very reason, their fate was decided early in life. On the day of the ceremony, the children were taken to the peaks of high mountains and left to succumb to the brutal cold. Ironically, these extreme natural conditions, sub-zero temperatures, thin air, and an arid environment, created a kind of natural deep freeze, preserving their bodies with extraordinary perfection for centuries. But the story does not end there. In 2012, scientists at the University of Bradford revealed an even more shocking discovery through the analysis of hair samples taken from the three mummies. The results showed that during the year leading up to their deaths, the children had been regularly given alcohol and coca leaves, the raw material used to produce cocaine. In particular, the Lifeless Maiden had consumed large amounts of alcohol in the final weeks before the sacrifice. Their diets also changed dramatically. Previously, they had eaten mostly potatoes and common vegetables. But once selected for sacrifice, they were fed corn, llama meat, and more nutrient-rich foods, a form of preparation for the sacred ritual. Dr. Andrew Wilson stated that the Maiden appeared to have been chosen approximately 12 months before her death. Compared to the other two children, she was better cared for, wore finer clothing, appeared calmer, and showed no signs of physical violence. Tragically, however, The very alcohol and cocaine given to her dulled her body's response to the cold, allowing death to arrive quickly and silently. In stark contrast, the Lulailako boy suffered a far more painful end. Evidence suggests he had been restrained. His clothing was stained with blood and vomit, clear signs of terror and extreme stress before death. This stands as undeniable proof that not all ancient rituals were as peaceful as they were once believed to be. Finally, scientists also discovered that the maiden suffered from a disease similar to tuberculosis. This finding raises new hope that ancient tissue samples like these could help modern medicine better understand the origins and potential treatments of certain diseases that still affect us today. But if you think the story of the Lulailako mummies is already disturbing enough, prepare yourself, because what comes next delves even deeper. Ahead of us lie even more mysterious archaeological discoveries, where every unearthed artifact has the potential to overturn everything humanity once believed to be true. So don't look away. Let's move on to the next discovery right now. 9,000-year-old human skull coated in bitumen mysteriously appear in the middle of the desert. Imagine this. In the middle of a barren desert, where sun and wind slowly erode everything over time, people suddenly discover intact human skulls that have existed for nearly 9,000 years. Not scattered bone fragments, not broken remains, but carefully preserved skulls, deliberately treated as if someone in prehistoric times had planned for us to see them today. How would that make you feel? I honestly can hardly imagine it myself. At times, I even struggle to believe it's real, and I think many of you might feel the same way. But this is not imagination. This discovery truly happened in the real world. The story begins at Nahal Himar, an archaeological sanctuary hidden deep within the Judean desert in southern Israel. This region is known for its extreme climate, dry, scorching, and nearly lifeless. Yet, paradoxically, these very harsh conditions became a kind of guardian of time, preserving organic artifacts that would have long since disappeared elsewhere. When archaeologists entered Nahal Himar cave, they discovered a total of 6 human skulls, all in relatively good condition. But what puzzled researchers most was this. Only 3 of the skulls had been carefully coated with bitumen. Radiocarbon dating revealed that these skulls date back to approximately 9,000 BCE, meaning they are nearly 9 millennia old. The extremely low humidity of the Judean desert prevented the bones from decomposing as they would in other environments. And the 3 skulls coated in bitumen were even more extraordinary. The bitumen layer not only preserved their shape, but also acted like a form of protective armor, shielding the skulls from environmental damage and the passage of time. According to detailed descriptions by the Israel Antiquities Authority, IAA, ancient people followed a very specific process when treating these skulls. First, a thin layer of bitumen was applied to the back of the skull. Then, pre-prepared strands of bitumen were layered on top, forming an interwoven, net-like structure, resembling a kind of cap placed over the head of the deceased. Clearly, this was not a random act. It was a deliberate ritual, carefully planned and rich in meaning. So why were only 3 skulls treated in this special way? Scientists believe the answer is closely tied to ancestor worship during the Neolithic period. The individuals whose skulls were coated in bitumen may have been revered ancestors or people of exceptional importance within their community. They were not merely remembered for a single generation, but possibly venerated across many generations, becoming spiritual symbols for the entire group. Another hypothesis suggests something even more striking. These skulls may have served as symbols of land ownership. Around 9,000 BCE, Neolithic populations were rapidly increasing, leading to intense competition over territory. Preserving and venerating the skulls of ancestors may have been a way for a lineage to declare, "This land belongs to us, from our ancestors to the present day." Of course, this remains a hypothesis, and no one can say for certain. But if it is true, then the bitumen-coated skulls of Nahal Himar are not merely archaeological artifacts. They may represent the earliest evidence that humans possessed a deep awareness of power, territory, and ancestral identity thousands of years ago. And if that's the case, hasn't our understanding of ancient history just been fundamentally challenged? 34,000-year-old Ice Age. Woolly rhinoceros. Mummy that challenges everything. Science thought it knew. In 2015, in the frozen northeastern region of Russia, a discovery left both archaeologists and paleontologists completely stunned. From the seemingly lifeless layers of permafrost, researchers uncovered the body of a woolly rhinoceros dating back as far as 34,000 years. What made the find so astonishing was this: the animal's body was almost perfectly preserved, as if it had merely fallen asleep a few months ago, rather than lying frozen since the distant Ice Age. The rhinoceros was named Sasha, after the hunter who accidentally discovered it. From the very first moment, Sasha became one of the greatest mysteries of the prehistoric world. Unlike woolly mammoths, Ice Age animals that are frequently found in Siberian ice, ancient woolly rhinoceroses are extremely rare. As a result, our knowledge of this species remains very limited. Its place in the evolutionary chain, its diet, its lifespan, nearly everything about it is still surrounded by question marks. And Sasha, with a body preserved in near-original condition, is like a living time capsule, carrying the hope of helping scientists uncover long-forgotten chapters of natural history. At first, when the rhinoceros was removed from the ice, its appearance was dark gray, weathered and heavy, exactly what one would expect from a creature that had rested for tens of thousands of years. But the surprise came when scientists began the careful cleaning and restoration process. Beneath layers of frozen mud and ice, Sasha's original coloring gradually emerged, a distinctive reddish-brown hue. This detail shocked researchers, as it suggests that the fur of Ice Age rhinoceroses may have been far more complex and diverse than scientists had ever imagined. By analyzing Sasha's teeth, scientists determined that the animal was only about 7 months old at the time of death. Its fragile body measured approximately 4.9 feet in length and stood about 2.6 feet tall, a relatively small size compared to modern African rhinoceroses. What is even more remarkable is that modern rhinos typically require around 18 months to reach a similar size. This suggests that the growth rate and biology of ancient woolly rhinoceroses may have been significantly different from those of their modern descendants. Yet the more researchers studied Sasha, the more questions emerged. How did it die? What allowed its body to be preserved in such an astonishingly perfect state? Was it suddenly buried by ice and snow? Or did it perish in some kind of natural disaster during the Ice Age? To this day, no truly convincing answer exists. Paleontologists and geologists can agree on only one thing. Despite decades of studying the Ice Age, what we know is still just the tip of the iceberg. Discoveries like Sasha serve as powerful reminders that the ancient world holds countless secrets yet to be revealed. Each perfectly preserved animal is not merely a museum specimen, it is a vivid fragment of Earth's history. Sasha does not tell only the story of a single young rhinoceros, but also opens a doorway for science to better understand the climate, environment, and life of a harsh prehistoric era. And perhaps from this small rhinoceros mummy, humanity will one day piece together the complete picture of the Ice Age, a world that was wild, frozen, and unforgiving, yet endlessly fascinating, and one that continues to challenge everything we once believed to be certain. The world's oldest ancient mummy in the Chilean desert, revealing the chilling secrets of the Chinchorro people. Would you believe me if I told you that long before the Egyptian pyramids, before the rise of powerful pharaohs, there existed a culture that mastered mummification with a level of sophistication so advanced that even modern science is left in awe? What makes this even more unbelievable is that these people were not kings, not nobles, but simple hunter-gatherers living extraordinarily modest lives. If you find that hard to believe, then come with me to the Atacama Desert in Chile, the driest place on Earth, to encounter the mysterious mummies of the ancient Chinchorro people, mummies that seem to be quietly smiling at history itself. The Chinchorro lived along river mouths and coastal areas, relying entirely on the sea for survival. They fished using nets, spears, and hooks, and built mobile shelters made from sea lion skins and bones. Their society had no agriculture, no animal husbandry, no pottery, and no metalworking. At this point, many of you might be thinking, what could such a primitive community possibly have to do with advanced mummification techniques? I thought the same at first, but this is where the paradox begins. In the harsh environment of the Atacama Desert, the Chinchorro created mummies in a wide range of poses, lying down, sitting upright, some with skin and hair fully preserved, and some that even appear to be smiling. Certain faces were intricately reconstructed, and some mummies wore masks made from pelican skin. a material that still sounds astonishing even by today's standards. What is truly remarkable is that Chinchorro mummification practices lasted over 3,000 years, evolving through multiple phases before the culture disappeared around 2000 BCE. This means they began mummifying the dead thousands of years earlier than the ancient Egyptians. Unlike ancient Egypt, where only royalty and elites were mummified, the Chinchorro mummified everyone, regardless of age or social status. Infants, fetuses, and even animals and pets were treated with the same meticulous care as adults. In their worldview, death recognized no hierarchy. One common Chinchorro method involved natural dehydration. However, the key factor that allowed these mummies to survive for millennia was the extreme dryness and heat of the Atacama Desert. Temperatures could reach 122 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and the soil's high sodium content made bacterial growth nearly impossible. Bodies dried out rapidly, becoming naturally air-dried, preserving skin, hair, and even clothing. Scientists believe that accidentally witnessing bodies naturally desiccate in the desert may have inspired the Chinchorro to deliberately practice mummification. This became especially significant during a population boom around 7,000 years ago, when the growing community felt an increasing need to preserve the presence of the deceased. One mummy of a young boy was found wearing a mask and buried on a woven mat made of reeds. His internal organs had been removed and replaced with soil, while the exterior was coated with black manganese ash. Analyses of Andean plant fossils and radiocarbon dating suggest that this practice began to decline around 5,000 years ago. Some mummies are unforgettable, such as a face frozen in a smile, wearing a wig and coated in black ash, preserved for 5,000 years. This so-called black mummy style lasted for more than 2 millennia. Around 2800 BCE, the black pigment was replaced with red, possibly due to changes in spiritual symbolism or because black manganese became scarce. Adult and child mummies were sometimes separated by whale bones, likely indicating members of the same family. For the Chinchorro, mummification was not merely a ritual, it was a way for ancestors to remain physically present among the living, an inseparable part of everyday life. Researchers also believe that when someone died, the mummy may have been paraded around the village before burial. Reeds, ash, and natural adhesives were used to reinforce joints, and artificial skin was created from textiles. Some 2,000-year-old female mummies were found with masks made from burial cloth, rope, and pelican skin, details that reveal an almost unimaginable level of care. For children, the bond was even deeper. In life, infants were strapped to wooden frames so parents could carry them on their backs, and in death, this did not change. Here we see a 5,000-year-old child mummy secured to a wooden frame, clear evidence of the belief that death does not separate families. Today, many scientists believe that Chinchorro mummies and those of North Africa may have been similarly inspired by desert environments. It may be coincidence, or it may suggest that humans in different parts of the world arrived at the same profound question: how can life avoid completely disappearing after death? And it is that question which has left us with the oldest mummies in the world, lying silently in the desert, yet still telling their story after thousands of years. Exquisitely carved coffin from China's Tang Dynasty. The main character was an ordinary elderly farmer who made his living growing vegetables. One day, as winter was approaching, he carried his shovel to a nearby field to dig a storage pit for cabbage, something farmers at the time did as routinely as eating a daily meal. The land had been cultivated for many years, so the soil was loose and easy to dig. Each shovel strike sent dirt flying effortlessly. Everything went smoothly, until suddenly, clang, the blade of the shovel struck something hard, producing a sharp metallic sound. Looking down into the hole, the farmer saw a fairly large cobblestone. Assuming it was just a natural rock, he didn't think much of it and continued digging. But the deeper he went, the stranger things became. More and more cobblestones appeared, packed so densely that the layer extended to about the height of a fully grown adult. And that wasn't all. Beneath the stones, he discovered a neatly arranged layer of bricks. Curious, he picked up a few bricks and froze. Their surfaces were covered with extremely intricate and unfamiliar patterns, unlike any bricks used for ordinary construction. At that moment, his instincts told him this was no ordinary find. Knowing that Zhangjiakou is a region with thousands of years of history, the farmer dared not dig any further. Instead, he immediately reported the discovery to the city's Cultural Relics Management Office. Before long, the Zhangjiakou archaeological team arrived at the site. Even though night had already fallen, they worked urgently under artificial lights. And after only a short time, the experts reached a firm conclusion. There was an ancient tomb beneath the ground. The layers of cobblestones and bricks the farmer had encountered were, in fact, part of the tomb's protective structure. Once the overlying soil was carefully removed, archaeologists realized that this tomb was highly unusual. There was no entrance, no passageway, only protective layers above. This discovery both surprised and quietly delighted the team, because tombs of this type are rarely disturbed, meaning the chances of preservation were extremely high. Eventually, after removing the surrounding brickwork, a grand ancient tomb was revealed. However, when the coffin was opened, what lay inside surprised many people. There were no gold or silver treasures, no luxurious burial objects. Inside were only the ashes of the tomb's owner and 22 ancient coins. It was these coins that allowed experts to determine the tomb's age. It dated back to the Tang dynasty, which ruled China from 618 to 907 AD. And at this point, a shocking decision was made by a highly experienced senior archaeologist. He said, "Rebury the coffin and wait another 13 years. Hearing this, many people, perhaps like you, were stunned. But the reason he gave was extremely convincing. After careful examination, experts discovered that the wooden coffin had bonded tightly with the soil beneath it. With the technology available at the time, attempting to lift it would almost certainly have destroyed it. So, to protect this priceless relic, the archaeological team decided to return the tomb to its original state, covering it once again with cobblestones and bricks. And wait. And they truly waited. In 1985, exactly 13 years later, when technology and equipment had significantly improved, experts returned to the site. This time, they were able to lift the coffin safely to the surface without any damage. Today, this coffin is officially recognized as a Level 3 cultural relic of China and is preserved under strict protection. Despite extensive research, the identity of the tomb's owner remains a mystery. Yet the coffin itself has told future generations a rare story, one that reveals the extraordinary craftsmanship of Tang Dynasty artisans, whose carvings are so refined and meticulous that they remain astonishing even today. All of this, awakened by a single accidental swing of a shovel. History, quite literally, was unearthed. Fascinating, isn't it? Underground city, nearly 2,000 feet beneath the Giza pyramids. For thousands of years, the world's gaze has remained fixed on the towering stone blocks of the Giza pyramids, the eternal symbols of ancient Egypt. Yet the most earth-shattering revelations may not lie above ground at all, but instead are gradually emerging beneath the surface, at depths reaching nearly 2,000 feet underground. Recently, a research team from Italy made a bold claim that stunned the international archaeological community. They assert that they have discovered a vast underground system beneath the Pyramid of Menkaure, a system which, according to them, not only challenges conventional understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization, but could potentially rewrite the foundations of human history itself. This discovery was made using ground-penetrating radar, GPR technology, which allows researchers to see through dozens of feet of rock and sand. What appeared in the resulting 3D subsurface maps were not simple cavities or natural caves, but an extensive network of corridors, stone pillars, and spiral shafts stretching hundreds of feet in length, structures strikingly similar in shape and scale to those previously reported beneath the Pyramid of Khafra, the neighboring and second-largest pyramid at Giza. Professor Riccardo Biondi, the lead researcher, stated, "We are 90% confident that this system truly exists, and if it does, it suggests that the pyramids are merely the visible surface of a massive infrastructure built during an entirely different era." According to Biondi, the team did not rely solely on radar imagery. They also conducted geological analyses of the area, compared stratigraphic structures, and incorporated data from earlier excavations that were either suspended or never widely published. One particularly shocking image released by the team depicts a massive spiral-shaped stone column, a form of architecture rarely seen and incompatible with any known ancient Egyptian construction style. This structure is believed to extend downward nearly 2,000 feet, far deeper than any underground construction ever documented in Egyptian archaeology. The team's claims go beyond scale alone. They have proposed a hypothesis suggesting that this underground system may be the product of a civilization that existed approximately 38,000 years ago, a timeline that far exceeds any date accepted by mainstream science for organized human civilization. Unsurprisingly, not everyone is prepared to accept such a dramatic upheaval. Zahi Hawass, one of the world's most prominent archaeologists and former Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, publicly rejected the claim. He described it as a hypothesis without scientific foundation, arguing that the Italian team's conclusions were reckless, based not on physical excavation but on interpretations of radar technology that is insufficiently reliable in an environment like the Giza Desert. Hawass, a long-standing defender of orthodox archaeological standards, has consistently opposed theories involving lost civilizations or prehistoric structures that fall outside the established framework of Egyptology. Nevertheless, the Italian research team continues to release data and imagery and has even proposed a theoretical model describing the underground system as an ancient ecological network. According to this model, natural elements such as water, earth, fire, and air may have been harnessed to sustain life or operate a mechanism that surpasses our current understanding. Notably, radar images reveal evidence of symmetrical chambers, ventilation corridors, and vertical shafts connecting the surface to unimaginable depths, all arranged according to sophisticated mathematical principles that align strangely well with the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. Some independent researchers have even linked this system to the concept of an Earth machine, an ancient device designed to interact with natural energies, not unlike how the ancient Greeks once created the Antikythera mechanism. If this underground system truly exists and is confirmed through future excavations, it could shake the very foundations of modern Egyptology, and more broadly, our understanding of human evolution. Are we truly the first advanced civilization, or did a highly sophisticated society exist before us? One capable of constructing colossal structures not only above ground, but deep beneath the earth like an immense subterranean labyrinth. Once such questions are raised, they cannot easily be dismissed. Although the scientific community remains deeply divided over this discovery, one thing is clear: the Pyramid of Menkaure, long believed to have been studied down to every last stone, still holds many secrets waiting to be uncovered, and perhaps beneath layers of dense sand and stone lies a doorway to a forgotten age, an era that history has not yet been ready to record. 2,500-year-old treasure emerges from the grasslands of Poland. Would you believe that beneath a peaceful field, where people think only of grass, livestock, and everyday sources of water, there could be a treasure thousands of years old hidden below the surface? This treasure did not begin with a dramatic excavation. There were no heavy machines, no large archaeological teams. Instead, it began in the simplest way possible, in a small village called Bartosz in Poland, on a freezing winter day in January 2025. That day, the son of a local farmer was clearing part of the field so the family's livestock could more easily reach their water source, a familiar task repeated year after year. But in that seemingly ordinary moment, he suddenly noticed a strange object embedded in the soil. It was a bronze necklace, broken cleanly into two pieces. At first glance, it did not sparkle like gold, nor was it intact. Yet something about it immediately felt unusual. Instinct suggested that this was no ordinary object. Realizing that it might be an ancient artifact, the farmer's family made a truly admirable decision. Instead of keeping it for themselves, they immediately reported the find to local authorities. After careful examination by experts, the conclusion left many people astonished. The necklace was determined to be approximately 2,500 years old. Even more remarkably, it is the only artifact from this historical period ever discovered in the Bartosz area. A rare find, nearly one of a kind. According to archaeologists, around 2,500 years ago, the world was standing at a major turning point. The Bronze Age was gradually giving way to the Iron Age, a period marked by dramatic changes in tools, technology, and social structure. The necklace was made entirely of bronze and features double-grooved circular patterns carved into its surface, indicating a surprisingly high level of craftsmanship for its time. Based on its age and historical records, many researchers believe the necklace may have belonged to the Hallstatt culture, a prominent early Iron Age culture in Europe, often associated with individuals of higher social status. However, not everyone agrees with this interpretation. Some experts argue that the necklace may instead be connected to the Kurgan culture, known for its nomadic communities and distinctive burial traditions. And this is where the story becomes even more intriguing. If it were merely an ancient piece of jewelry, the mystery might end there. But an artifact that could belong to multiple cultures, that dates precisely to a major historical transition, and that was found in such an unexpected location, clearly carries unanswered questions within it. At present, the necklace is undergoing in-depth study by specialists at the Institute of Archaeology at Nicholas Copernicus University in Torun. Every carved line, every trace of wear on its surface may serve as a clue, pointing to the people who once wore it, the land they lived on, and an entire era that passed more than 2 millennia ago. Once the analysis is complete, the necklace will be transferred to a museum for preservation and public display. And one day, you and I, lovers of history, may have the chance to stand before this small object and feel a tangible connection to humanity's distant past. Because every artifact is more than metal and form. It is a story lying dormant. And who knows? The 2,500-year-old necklace from Bartosz may be only the beginning of an even greater chain of discoveries, quietly waiting for humans to stumble upon them by chance. It's entirely possible. After all, the world is full of mysteries and wonders, don't you think? The mass grave of 796 children in Ireland reveals a terrifying truth from history. Hidden deep beneath the soil of a quiet garden in the town of Tuam, County Galway, Ireland, lies a historical secret that has shaken the conscience of an entire nation. After decades of being ignored, covered up, and buried, the truth surrounding the fate of 796 infants and young children, believed to have died under mysterious circumstances at a Catholic church-run institution, is finally coming to light. On Monday, archaeologists and forensic experts from around the world, including Colombia, Spain, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and the United States, officially began a large-scale excavation to search for traces of these children. These were fragile lives once buried without names in an area that had formerly been a septic tank, located right beside the playground of a mother and baby home. The excavation project is being led by Daniel McSweeney, a former special envoy of the International Committee of the Red Cross, who stated that this mission is both profoundly humanitarian and extraordinarily complex. The team's task is to sift through ancient underground sewage systems believed to be mass burial sites for hundreds of children, then carefully reassemble individual bone fragments in an attempt to reconstruct complete remains and, if possible, identify them. Early signs of the site's horrifying scale and nature emerged during test excavations conducted between 2016 and 2017, when scientists discovered the remains of children under the age of 3, including fetuses estimated to be around 35 weeks gestation. Ground-penetrating radar later revealed additional anomalies beneath the surface, likely mass graves, located in what was once a children's playground. The heartbreaking story dates back to 1925 through 1960, when Tuam served as a compulsory residence for thousands of unmarried pregnant women, individuals rejected by Irish society at the time and viewed as a shame to be hidden away. The institution was operated by the Bon Secours sisters, and over more than 3 decades, 796 children died there, according to death records painstakingly collected by local historian Catherine Corless. What is most disturbing is that no official burial records exist for these deaths, raising grave suspicions that many children were secretly buried in the septic system of the old facility, which had itself been built on the grounds of a famine-era workhouse. According to Corless, the truth cannot remain buried forever. She stated, "You can't put up a monument and say that's the end of it. You can't bless a place where such terrible wrongs were committed." Through relentless perseverance, she reignited the pursuit of justice for hundreds of families, many of whom lived in despair, never knowing whether their children had truly died or had been illegally sent away for adoption. Anna Corrigan, one of those with missing relatives from Tuam, said that her 2 brothers, one 7 months old and the other 13 months old, died there as infants, yet no one knows where they were buried. For Corrigan, the current excavation represents light at the end of a very long tunnel, though she remains cautious and uncertain about whether she will ever receive clear answers. DNA investigations are also underway. Samples from 14 relatives have already been collected, while approximately 80 others are waiting for the chance to participate in identification efforts. Items recovered during early excavations, such as diaper pins, enamel plates, and baby bottles, not only provide evidence of the children's harsh living conditions, but may also help date the remains. Experts are applying advanced technologies, including tooth enamel peptide analysis, to determine sex, age, and potentially even causes of death. While many in the community welcome the excavation as a necessary step toward confronting a dark chapter in national history, not everyone agrees. Some local residents argue that the dead should be left in peace and fear that disturbing the site will reopen old wounds. But for people like P.J. Haverty, who spent more than 6.5 years at the Tuam institution during his childhood and remembers it as a place of deep suffering, where mothers were allowed only brief moments to breastfeed and change diapers before being forced into hard labor, the excavation is wonderful, but it will not ease the anger. According to him, that anger will remain with survivors and families until they leave this world. Meanwhile, unresolved questions persist regarding the alleged falsification of death records to facilitate illegal adoptions to the United States. Corrigan poses a chilling question. Could they be living somewhere across the ocean, unaware that people in Ireland believe they are dead? With every shovel of earth turned and every small bone uncovered, the excavation at Tuam is not merely unearthing buried history. It is a confrontation with conscience, justice, and the collective memory of a nation. This is not just an archaeological journey, but a mission to restore dignity to the tiny souls once forgotten by the world. What would you think if the mystery surrounding these young remains were finally brought to light one day? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The immortal salt mummies of Iran. What would you think if I told you that there are people who died thousands of years ago, yet when they were discovered, they still had their hair, skin, beards, and even internal organs almost perfectly preserved? It sounds like something out of science fiction, doesn't it? But this astonishing reality lies deep beneath the ground of Iran, inside an ancient salt mine known as Cherabad. The Cherabad underground salt mine is located west of the city of Zanjan, in northern Iran. It is a massive mining complex that has been exploited by humans for thousands of years, and remarkably, its salt reserves have still not been exhausted to this day. However, what has made Cherabad famous worldwide is not the salt itself, but the ancient human remains preserved in an almost unbelievable state deep within the mine. Since 1993, miners working at Cherabad have repeatedly discovered mummified bodies dating back thousands of years. These remains are known by a very distinctive name, the Salt Men. Thanks to the mine's extremely dry, cold, and highly saline environment, the bodies have undergone almost no decomposition. Hair, skin, flesh, and bones remain intact, so much so that, at first glance, many people mistook them for the bodies of individuals who had died only recently. Even more chilling is the fact that in some of these mummies, internal organs that normally decompose very quickly, such as the stomach and intestines, are still clearly identifiable. This is extraordinarily rare in archaeology and has left scientists deeply astonished. The first mummy was discovered in 1993. It was the body of an elderly man with a long white beard. Beside him were an iron knife and a pair of gold earrings. Through analysis, scientists determined that this man died around 200 AD, but the discoveries did not stop there. In 2004, another mummy was found about 50 feet away from the original location. Then in 2005 and 2006, additional remains were uncovered, including the mummy of a teenage boy. In total, 6 mummies have been discovered in the Cherabad salt tunnels to date. Most remarkably, the oldest mummy found at the site has been dated to approximately 9,550 BC, meaning it is more than 11,000 years old. A figure that sends chills down the spine of anyone who hears it. As for their identities and causes of death, since all of the mummies are male, scientists believe they were likely ancient miners. It is highly possible that they were killed in accidents during salt extraction, or perhaps murdered, and were subsequently buried beneath thousands of tons of salt. This very process inadvertently turned them into natural mummies, preserved in near-perfect condition for millennia. Today, the first 4 mummies are on display at the Zanjan Archaeological Museum, while the 5th is preserved at the National Museum of Iran. The final Salt Man remains in the mine itself, as half of his body is still trapped within rock-hard crystallized salt, making removal nearly impossible. If you ever have the chance to visit Iran, Don't miss the opportunity to see these extraordinary salt mummies at the National Museum. They are among the most haunting and fascinating archaeological discoveries in the world. An 800-year-old penguin mummy in Antarctica. In one of the coldest places on Earth, where there is nothing but biting winds, endless white ice, and silence stretching across centuries, scientists suddenly discovered penguin bodies that looked as if they had died just yesterday. Not in a museum, not inside a laboratory, but right in the vast wilderness of Antarctica. This story is not fiction. It is a real scientific discovery that has forced biologists to re-examine an entire chapter of penguin history and the climate history of our planet. The central figure in this discovery is biologist Stephen Emsley. During a research expedition in the Ross Sea, Antarctica, he uncovered the remains of ancient Adelie penguins, a species famous for its waddling walk and extraordinary ability to survive in extreme icy conditions. What made the discovery remarkable was how incredibly well-preserved these remains were, despite their great age. The story began 4 years earlier, when Emsley was conducting fieldwork at Cape Irizar, located along the Ross Sea. There, he noticed something unusual: large piles of pebbles stacked together, identical to the nests Adelie penguins typically build for breeding. What made this strange was that the area today is completely devoid of any penguin colonies. Upon closer inspection, Emsley found penguin remains scattered across the site. Most were heavily decomposed chicks, but mixed among them were individuals that appeared to have died only recently. This contradiction raised a troubling question: what had really happened here? Today, the Ross Sea is home to nearly 1 million breeding pairs of Adelie penguins. Yet at Cape Irizar specifically, penguins have completely disappeared since the early 20th century, when explorer Robert Falcon Scott first documented their presence. This mystery pushed Emsley to search for answers. Radiocarbon dating later confirmed his suspicions. These penguin remains were indeed ancient. Scientists identified 3 distinct periods during which Adelie penguins had lived in this area. The earliest dates back about 5,000 years, while the most recent colony disappeared roughly 800 years ago. According to Emsley, the period between 4,000 and 2,000 years ago was ideal for Adelie penguins. During that time, temperatures were warmer than today, and the marine environment was rich in nutrients, allowing penguin populations to thrive. However, conditions later worsened as snow accumulation and sea ice increased. This not only forced the penguins to abandon the area, but also unintentionally buried and preserved the bodies of those that had died. The most surprising part of this discovery is why these penguin mummies are now being exposed. The answer lies in global warming. Since the 1980s, temperatures in the Ross Sea region have risen by approximately 2.7 to 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, causing ice and snow to melt and reveal remains that had been buried for centuries. As a result, this discovery tells us more than just a story about penguins. It serves as a powerful reminder of climate change. Antarctica is slowly revealing its past, and with every layer of ice that melts, another piece of history is brought back into the light. DNA. Testing of a 4,000-year-old mummy in China. Scientists were shocked by what they discovered. Dear viewers, in the heart of one of the harshest deserts on the planet, a place where sand-laden winds sting the face, where daytime heat is scorching and nighttime cold cuts to the bone, there lie hundreds of ancient mummies that have rested in silence for thousands of years. They are not found in pyramids nor in royal tombs, but inside boats. Just hearing that already sounds strange, doesn't it? Yet for scientists, what truly shocked and baffled them was not the shape of the mummies, their age, or the way they were buried, but the DNA sequences that were decoded afterward. Our story begins in the Tarim Basin, located in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China. In the 1990s, archaeologists conducting surveys in this area discovered a large number of ancient mummies buried deep beneath layers of arid desert sand. Some of them were up to 4,000 years old, and yet were preserved in an almost intact state. Their skin had not decomposed, their hair was still present, and even their facial features were clearly recognizable. The reason for this unusual immortality lies in the desert's extreme natural conditions. The intensely dry and hot air inadvertently became a kind of natural mummification machine, preventing bacteria from attacking the bodies. However, what puzzled researchers even more was the appearance of these mummies. They had high nasal bridges, deep-set eyes, brown or light blonde hair, and facial features that appeared distinctly Western. Their clothing was woven from wool, and inside the graves were wheat, millet, and cheese, items commonly associated with ancient pastoral and agricultural communities in West and Central Asia. All of these details once led many to believe that these people were migrants from the West who had crossed vast steppes and deserts to settle in the distant land of Xinjiang. But then, science overturned the entire hypothesis. An international research team consisting of scientists from China, Europe, and the United States decided to take a bold step, sequencing the ancient DNA of the mummies. This marked the first time the genomes of these mysterious individuals were comprehensively analyzed. The researchers collected samples from 13 of the oldest mummies in the Tarim Basin, dated between 3,700 and 4,100 years ago, and compared them with remains from 5 individuals who had lived in the Dzungarian Basin in northern Xinjiang. People who were even older, dating back as far as 5,000 years. The results stunned the scientific community. The Tarim mummies were not immigrants, nor were they descendants of nomadic populations from West Asia, as previously believed. Instead, they were indigenous people, direct descendants of an ancient Asian population that had once lived widely during the Ice Age. This was a group of ancient hunter-gatherers, most of whom disappeared from the Earth around 10,000 years ago. Even more remarkably, DNA analyses revealed that these mummies showed almost no genetic mixing with any other contemporary populations. They existed as a kind of genetic oasis, isolated yet not primitive. On the contrary, according to Professor Christina Weriner from Harvard University, they were a culturally open community. They adopted technologies, ideas, and pastoral and agricultural practices from surrounding groups while still maintaining a distinct and unmixed identity. In other words, they did not assimilate, they selectively integrated. In this case, ancient DNA became an extraordinarily valuable historical witness, especially given that written records from that period are nearly non-existent. According to Assistant Professor Vagish Narasimhan from the University of Texas, these genetic data help us better understand how our ancestors migrated, adapted, and survived in some of the most extreme environments on Earth. However, the more scientists understand, the more perplexed they become. To this day, no one can fully explain why these people were buried in boats covered with animal hides with paddles placed at their heads. In the middle of a desert without a single drop of water, what purpose could boats have served? Were they symbols of a journey to the afterlife? Or distant memories of a time when the climate here was far wetter than we imagine? It is difficult to know for certain, but we hope that in the near future, scientific advances will allow researchers to uncover the answer. And of course, this is only one small piece of the vast puzzle known as human history. If the Tarim mummies have not yet sent a chill down your spine or sparked your curiosity, then stay with us, because coming up next, we will explore even more mysterious archaeological discoveries from around the world. Places where every skeleton, every artifact, and every remaining trace has the power to overturn what we once believed to be the truth. Are you ready to continue this journey of discovery with me? If you are, then let's move on to our next discovery right now. The alien grave in Texas, a late 19th century UFO mystery that still divides the world. Imagine this for a moment. If one day, right in the middle of a small remote town, people discovered a grave believed to contain the remains of an alien, would you believe it? It sounds like science fiction, yet this story was carefully documented as far back as the late 19th century, and to this day, it continues to baffle UFO researchers who have been unable to fully explain it. The town of Aurora, Texas, was once little more than a forgotten settlement with barren land and few people paying attention to it. But everything changed on April 15, 1897. That morning, many residents of the town reported seeing a strange flying object hovering over the center of Aurora. The object was moving slowly and appeared to be experiencing mechanical trouble. Just minutes later, disaster struck. The aircraft crashed directly into a windmill on Judge Proctor's property, triggering a powerful explosion that destroyed the windmill, demolished the water tank, and reduced the craft itself to rubble. Terrified residents rushed to the scene, and what they saw left them stunned. Debris was scattered everywhere, described as a lightweight metal resembling a mixture of aluminum and silver, unlike any material known to humans at the time. And among the wreckage lay the body of a strange being. It was small in stature, with a body shape unlike that of any human. Although badly disfigured, many witnesses insisted that it could not have been a human being. Even more intriguingly, on the creature's body was found a piece of paper resembling newspaper material, covered in strange symbols that looked like hieroglyphs and could not be read by anyone. At the time, the residents of Aurora collected the wreckage, dumped it into an old well, and sealed it shut. The body of the strange being was buried in the Aurora Cemetery, placed in a small grave marked by a simple headstone engraved with what appeared to be an airship. The news spread rapidly. Curious onlookers flocked to Aurora in growing numbers. Some firmly believed the story, while others dismissed it as a hoax. But the story did not end there. In 1945, Brawley Oates, the new owner of the land where the UFO had crashed, claimed that while cleaning out the old well, he discovered strange metal fragments. Vapors rising from the well made him dizzy, and fearing toxic gases, he sealed the well with concrete. Decades passed, and the incident seemed to fade into obscurity, until old documents were rediscovered by UFO enthusiasts. Among them was Bill Case, a journalist and director of the Texas UFO Network, who launched an investigation in 1973. He interviewed surviving witnesses and located the grave believed to belong to the alien, though the headstone was now broken in half. Using detection equipment, he discovered a large metal object buried underground. However, when permission was requested to excavate the site, authorities denied the request. Shortly afterward, the metal fragments disappeared, the headstone was stolen, and once again, the burial site slipped into mystery. In 2008, the television program UFO Hunters reopened the investigation. They reopened the old well but found no debris, only unusually high levels of aluminum in the well water. Ground-penetrating radar was also used at the Aurora Cemetery, identifying a suspicious location, but excavation was still not permitted. To this day, the alien grave in Aurora exists only in written records, eyewitness accounts, and a commemorative marker in the cemetery. Some believe the entire story was merely a publicity stunt to promote the town. Others suggest it was the result of an experimental aircraft accident involving a scientist. Yet many people believe that the truth has been deliberately concealed. And in today's context, especially after the US Navy acknowledged that videos of UFO encounters are genuine, the Aurora story once again raises a troubling question. Do humans know far less than we think about what exists beyond Earth? So what do you think? Which theory do you lean toward? Do you believe extraterrestrials truly exist? Or was this merely an elaborate 19th century hoax designed to deceive curious minds? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below so we can discuss it together. The ancient city swallowed by the Kalahari Desert. In November 1885, Guillermo Farini, a European explorer, claimed that he had walked across the Kalahari Desert and discovered the ruins of an ancient city that had never been previously recorded. According to Farini, amid the vast sea of sand, he saw stones with unusual shapes arranged in structures that appeared to be man-made. Farini did not make this claim lightly. In 1886, he submitted a detailed report of his discovery to both the Berlin Geographical Society and the Royal Geographical Society in Britain. He later published an entire book describing in detail what he had seen. In it, Farini asserted that the ancient city was built in an arc-shaped layout, with part of it completely buried beneath the sand, while the remaining sections were still exposed. He believed the site had existed for thousands of years. From that point on, the legend of the lost city buried in the Kalahari Desert was officially born. Notably, Farini was not the only one who believed this story. Some members of the Khoi people, who had lived in the region for generations, also confirmed that their ancestors had passed down stories of an ancient city deep within the desert. The historian Gustav Prelude even claimed that the Khoi were willing to guide him to the ruins in the northern Kalahari, as well as to another distant location where gemstones had once been discovered. These accounts only heightened the curiosity of explorers and archaeologists. Numerous expeditions were organized in the hope of proving that Farini had not fabricated his story. However, year after year, no conclusive evidence was found. The mysterious city was gradually placed on the list of unsolved legends. Many experts began to express skepticism. Professor A.J. Clement, a leading archaeologist, reviewed the available documents and reached a controversial conclusion. Farini may never have actually crossed the central Kalahari Desert at all. According to Clement, Farini likely traveled only along the desert's edge and may have mistaken naturally occurring dolerite rocks, shaped by erosion, for man-made structures. Just when it seemed the story had come to an end, a surprising development occurred in 2016 when a new expedition was launched. This time, researchers claimed they had discovered stone walls and structures that closely matched Farini's original descriptions. However, the most important question remains unanswered. Were these structures created by humans, or are they merely the result of natural geological processes? To this day, the buried city of the Kalahari Desert has not been definitively confirmed to exist. Yet it is precisely this uncertainty that has made it one of the most intriguing archaeological mysteries in human history. So what do you think? Did Farini stumble upon the remnants of a lost civilization, or has this been nothing more than a misunderstanding that has lasted for over a century? Share your thoughts, because perhaps the truth is still out there, lying beneath the scorching sands of the Kalahari Desert, waiting for future generations to uncover it. Who knows? It's entirely possible, isn't it? 2,000-year-old treasure in Pompeii, the house frozen in the moment of doomsday. Imagine one day stepping into an ancient house where the oven is still there, floor tiles are neatly stacked and waiting to be laid, mortar has not yet been fully used, yet the owners vanished 2,000 years ago. What would you think had happened? It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? And yet, in Pompeii, this chilling scenario is real. Proof comes from a recent excavation at the petrified city of Pompeii, part of the Pompeii Archaeological Park in Italy, where scientists uncovered what they themselves have called the most unusual treasure ever found at the site. It is not gold, silver, or rare artifacts, but a large house in which everything inside appears to have been frozen at the exact fatal moment 2,000 years ago. Pompeii is the famous ancient city destroyed by the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. Ash and volcanic debris fell so rapidly that many people had no chance to escape, leaving behind petrified victims in countless poses, some curled up on the ground, some crouching, others caught mid-run in sheer desperation. That horrific disaster inadvertently became a kind of time capsule, preserving an entire city in astonishing detail. However, even though archaeologists are accustomed to stone-cast bodies and ancient structures, they were still taken aback by this discovery. A construction site preserved as if work had never stopped. Inside the house, renovation work was clearly underway just moments before the disaster struck. Piles of mortar remained untouched, floor tiles were carefully arranged and ready for installation, and there were no signs of panic or a rushed escape. This discovery offers scientists a perfect slice of time, allowing them to look directly into everyday life and construction techniques from 2,000 years ago. The house has been identified as belonging to a baker, as a complete oven was found inside. Even more remarkably, researchers discovered a piece of artwork depicting flatbread and a glass of wine, simple, everyday images from the lives of ancient Pompeii residents. In addition, a political campaign poster was found on one of the walls, expressing support for a politician named Aulus Rustius Verus, revealing just how active and vibrant political life once was in the city. Not far from the oven, the remains of two women and a young boy were discovered, likely family members who tried to shelter inside the house but could not escape the deadly flow of ash. In the reception area, tools used for measuring and accounting during construction were still in their original positions. In the household shrine, amphorae used to mix plaster for finishing the walls were found exactly where they had been left, as if waiting for human hands to return and complete the unfinished work. In other rooms, archaeologists uncovered surprisingly familiar construction tools, such as plumb bobs and concrete mixing implements, tools that modern builders still use today. The greatest value of this discovery lies in the insight it provides into the secrets of ancient Roman concrete. Analyses show that the Romans mixed dry lime and dry pozzolana with very hot water, creating a fast-setting concrete that was exceptionally durable and capable of self-healing small cracks through exposure to moisture. Pozzolana, volcanic ash, or pumice forms a cement-like binding compound when combined with slaked lime. From this unusual treasure, one conclusion becomes clear. The technical skill of the people of Pompeii and of ancient Rome as a whole was far more advanced than we once believed. In fact, many scientists today think that modern humanity still has much to learn from their construction techniques and building materials. And what about you? If you were able to step into that frozen house, do you think you would feel more fear or more awe? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below. 2,500-year-old ice mummy in Siberia reveals a mystery that shook the archaeological world. In the freezing Ukok Plateau of Siberia, where the wind cuts so sharply that standing still for just a few minutes can leave a person numb, there was a secret that lay dormant for more than 2 millennia. It was not until 1993, when humans finally reached the permafrost, that this secret began to reveal itself, sending shockwaves through the global archaeological community. At the time, the media gave the discovery an almost mythical name, the Ukok Princess, also known as the Ice Maiden. The mummy belonged to a woman found deep within the Ukok Plateau in Siberia, Russia. From the very beginning, scientists recognized it as one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Thanks to advances in modern science, the identity and life of this woman have gradually come into focus. According to experts, she belonged to the Pazyryk people, an ancient nomadic culture, and held noble status. The Ukok princess is believed to have lived around the 5th century BCE. To date, the mummy is estimated to be approximately 2,500 years old. What truly stunned archaeologists was not only the mummy's age, but also the extraordinary state of preservation of the burial. The tomb had never been looted. The coffin remained intact and tightly sealed, and the ice inside the grave had never melted since it froze thousands of years ago. However, the true identity of this woman remains a subject of debate. Some theories suggest that she was not merely a noblewoman, but possibly a shaman or spiritual leader of the Pazyryk tribe. One key piece of evidence is that her grave was completely isolated from other burials. In ancient pastoral societies, only shamans were typically buried separately in this way. Further chemical analyses revealed traces of mercury and copper inside the mummy's nasal cavity. This finding led to the hypothesis that she may have inhaled these substances to enter trance-like states and expand her consciousness, a ritual commonly associated with ancient shamans. In addition, the mummy was found wearing an elaborate headdress, further reinforcing the idea that this woman held a special role within her community. The body of the Ukok princess also bears intricate tattoos, a practice that was widespread among the Pazyryk people. However, later genetic testing produced an unexpected result. She was a descendant of European populations, rather than being entirely of Asian origin as many had previously assumed. Magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, scans brought even more surprises. The mummy was extremely thin, unlike other noble mummies that had been discovered before, which typically showed signs of good nutrition. She stood approximately 5 feet 5 inches to 5 feet 7 inches tall, which was quite tall for her era, but weighed only about 108 pounds. Final analyses revealed that she suffered from cancer during the final stage of her life. Remarkably, despite her severe illness, she was not abandoned by her tribe. They continued to bring her with them during seasonal migrations to the Ukok Plateau to herd livestock until spring. It is believed that during this harsh journey, she may have fallen from a height and died. Inside the tomb, archaeologists also discovered cannabis, which is believed to have been used to relieve pain caused by cancer and physical injuries. For more than 20 years, the mummy was preserved at the Novosibirsk Museum of Archaeology and Ethnography. In September 2012, the Ukok princess was transferred to the National Museum in Gorno-Altaysk. And even today, one question remains unanswered. Who was she really? A princess, a shaman, or a spiritual figure far beyond our current understanding? What do you think? Which explanation do you find most convincing? A 300,000-year-old giant elephant skeleton in Germany reveals how Stone Age humans survived. My friend, just imagine this for a moment. What if one day, while digging deep into the ground, you suddenly came across the skeleton of a gigantic creature that once roamed the earth 300,000 years ago, at a time when humans had not yet learned how to farm or build houses? And even more unsettling, what if that creature lived at the same time as our distant ancestors? How would that make you feel? If it's hard to picture, then come with me to Schöningen, a famous archaeological site in Lower Saxony, Germany, often described as a window straight into the Paleolithic age. It was here that a team of archaeologists from the Senckenberg Center for Human Evolution and Paleoenvironment at the University of Tübingen unearthed a nearly complete skeleton of a straight-tusked elephant dating back as far as 300,000 years. Schöningen was already well known in the scientific community. The site had previously caused a sensation with the discovery of the oldest known wooden spears, along with remains of horses, saber-toothed cats, and many other large mammals that were once hunted by humans. But this new discovery is even more extraordinary. According to Dr. Jordi Serengeli, an archaeologist at the Senckenberg Center, the research team uncovered a pair of tusks measuring up to about 7.5 feet long, an almost intact lower jaw, multiple vertebrae, ribs, and large limb bones from 3 legs. Most remarkably, they also found 5 delicate hyoid bones, a type of bone that is extremely rare to survive preservation over hundreds of thousands of years. So just how massive was this elephant? According to archaeologist Vo Verheyen from Leiden University, this was an elderly female elephant, as indicated by her heavily worn teeth, a clear sign of advanced age. When alive, she stood approximately 10 feet 6 inches tall at the shoulder and weighed around 15,000 pounds, making her even larger than modern female African elephants. A creature of that size could have killed a Stone Age human with a single attack. For this reason, scientists believe the elephant was not hunted by humans, but most likely died of old age or illness. In fact, elephants often move toward water or lie near lake shores when they grow weak, and at that time, Schöningen was an environment rich in ancient lakes and wetlands. However, the story does not end there. Near the elephant's skeleton, archaeologists discovered 30 small stone flakes and 2 long bones used as hammering tools. Notably, these tools contained microscopic stone fragments embedded in them, indicating they had been sharpened and reworked on-site, very close to the elephant's remains. According to Dr. Serengeli, this suggests that Homo heidelbergensis, the ancestor of both Neanderthals and modern humans, likely butchered the elephant, cutting meat, tendons, and fat from the carcass. A naturally deceased elephant would have provided an enormous source of food, enough to sustain an entire group for a long period of time without the deadly risk of hunting it. Although Paleolithic humans were skilled hunters, researchers argue there was no compelling reason for them to risk attacking a fully grown elephant. They understood their environment well and knew that large elephants often died naturally near bodies of water, places where humans could take advantage of the situation without facing extreme danger. Of course, the discovery at Schöningen does not completely rule out the idea that ancient humans hunted elephants. But it raises a profound question. Could it be that much of the relationship between humans and prehistoric giants was not solely about hunting and killing, but also about observation, patience, and the intelligent use of nature? It's hard to say for certain, but it certainly makes you think, doesn't it? The giant stone sarcophagus in Egypt, a terrifying mistake by the ancient pharaohs. In the heart of Egypt's arid desert, where the heat seems capable of melting time itself, there lies a valley where every grain of sand is soaked with power, blood, and untold secrets. This is the Valley of the Pharaohs, and it is here that archaeologists uncovered a discovery that stunned the entire world. A stone sarcophagus so enormous that even its creators could not fit it properly into the tomb. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? Yet it is entirely true. This colossal sarcophagus is believed to have been the final resting place of Pharaoh Merneptah, a powerful ruler who governed Egypt more than 3,200 years ago. What left archaeologists truly astonished was not only the identity of the man buried inside, but the sheer, almost irrational size of the coffin itself. It measures over 13 feet long, about 7.5 feet wide, and nearly 8.2 feet tall, making it the largest stone sarcophagus ever discovered for a pharaoh. Take a moment and think about that. In an era with no modern machinery, no cranes, no steel, no engines, how could the ancient Egyptians possibly transport a massive granite structure like this deep underground? According to Dr. Edwin Brock, an archaeologist from the Royal Ontario Museum in Canada who was directly involved in the research, this was a feat far beyond what we normally imagine. He admitted, "We have never seen a stone sarcophagus of this size and level of craftsmanship. It reflects the extraordinary technical skill and spiritual beliefs of the ancient Egyptians." Archaeologists believe the sarcophagus was fully assembled first, then dragged into the tomb using a system of pulleys, ropes, and wooden beams. But then, the unthinkable happened. As the work neared completion, the builders realized a catastrophic mistake. The sarcophagus did not fit through the entrance of the tomb, an error that seems impossible in one of the most sacred constructions imaginable, one directly tied to beliefs about the afterlife and the eternal immortality of the pharaoh. Yet instead of abandoning the project or starting over, both nearly impossible options, the builders made a decision so bold it is almost unbelievable. They destroyed the tomb entrance itself. Yes, they smashed the doorway, widened the entrance just enough to move the sarcophagus inside, and then rebuilt everything exactly as it had been before, completely concealing the traces of what may have been the most horrifying error correction in ancient Egyptian history. Over time, the sarcophagus shattered into multiple pieces, possibly due to grave robbers or simply from being buried under stone and earth for thousands of years. Only the lid remains nearly intact, standing as a silent witness to history. Today, archaeologists are painstakingly reassembling each fragment as if piecing together the memories of a once great civilization. This discovery is not only a triumph of archaeology, but also a powerful reminder that history is shaped not just by glory, but by very human mistakes as well. 500-year-old egg found intact in an ancient Chinese tomb. What do you think is the most fragile thing over time? Paper, wood, or food? But what if I told you that some eggs have lain underground for 500 years, enduring wars, natural disasters, and the relentless passage of time, and yet, when unearthed, their shells were still completely intact? Hard to believe, right? And yet, this is exactly what archaeologists have recently discovered in China. The story begins in Sichuan province, where a team of archaeologists was excavating an ancient tomb dating back to the Ming Dynasty, which ruled from 1368 to 1644. The tomb is located inside a public park in the city of Guanggan, and at first glance, it appeared no different from many other ancient graves previously uncovered. But as archaeologists dug deeper inside, they encountered something that left everyone stunned. Inside the tomb was a large jar filled with rice, and remarkably, eggs were buried directly within it, with their shells still intact, neither broken nor decayed as one might expect. According to researchers, the exact number of eggs is still being carefully examined and documented, as even the smallest mistake could cause irreversible damage to these extremely delicate artifacts. Mr. Tang Yunmei, director of the Guanggan Museum, explained that the tomb structure was sealed almost perfectly. The coffin was designed to be highly resistant to moisture and corrosion, and the interior was coated with a thick layer of lime measuring approximately 0.8 to 2 inches. This lime layer created a dry, stable environment that greatly limited bacterial activity and slowed natural decomposition. Moreover, both the rice jar and the eggs were tightly sealed with a lid, as if the ancient builders had carefully planned their preservation in advance. However, what puzzles scientists the most is not just how the eggs were preserved, but why they were placed in the tomb in the first place. To this day, historians have not reached a unified explanation. One theory suggests that eggs symbolized fertility and the continuation of life, a wish for numerous descendants and unbroken family lineages. In East Asian culture, eggs have long been regarded as symbols of beginnings and rebirth. On the other hand, some more practical and even somewhat mundane interpretations propose that the tomb's owner simply enjoyed eating eggs while alive, and that the family buried this familiar food as part of the grave goods. It may sound simple, but in archaeology, many major discoveries originate from surprisingly ordinary human behaviors. Regardless of their meaning, the discovery of intact eggs in an ancient tomb is considered extremely rare in China. Eggs are inherently fragile, easily damaged by moisture, soil pressure, and the passage of time. For this reason, the find is regarded as highly unusual and offers valuable insight into ancient burial practices and preservation techniques. At present, archaeologists are continuing to verify the number of eggs while implementing strict protective measures to prevent any damage to these mysterious artifacts. Every small detail may hold a much larger story, one about history, culture, and the beliefs of people who lived half a millennium ago. So what do you think? Do these eggs carry spiritual significance, or are they simply evidence of a very down-to-earth habit of the ancient people? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because sometimes it's the smallest questions that unlock the greatest mysteries of the past. 3,300-year-old pink stone sarcophagus and the untold secrets of ancient Egypt's Minister of Finance. If you think ancient Egyptian tombs are nothing more than sand, dry bones, and walls cracked by time, then this discovery will certainly make you think again. Some things, despite being buried for more than 3 millennia, still leave modern humanity stunned by their extraordinary level of preservation when they are finally unearthed. This story takes us back to ancient Egypt over 3,300 years ago, during the glorious reign of Pharaoh Ramses II. At Saqqara, an ancient necropolis located not far from Cairo, archaeologists uncovered a remarkable tomb. Hidden deep underground was a pink granite sarcophagus, almost perfectly preserved, so beautiful that even experts described it as a dream discovery. The owner of the sarcophagus was no ordinary individual. It belonged to Ptah Mwiya, a high-ranking official who served as the head of the royal treasury under Ramses the Great, essentially the equivalent of a modern-day minister of finance. This sarcophagus is rare not only because of its age, but also because of its material. Pink granite is extremely difficult to quarry and carve, and it was typically reserved only for the most powerful elite. On its surface, ancient Egyptian artisans meticulously carved hieroglyphic inscriptions and mythological symbols. Most striking on the lid is the image of the sky goddess Nut spreading her wings, as if embracing and protecting the soul of the deceased. Surrounding her are the 4 sons of the god Horus, deities tasked with guarding the internal organs and the soul on its journey to the afterlife. Yet what truly captured archaeologists' attention was not just the sarcophagus's external beauty. The inscriptions carved into the stone tell the story of Ptah Mwiya's life and career. He once served as an overseer of livestock, a royal scribe, and later rose to control the state treasury, a position that reflected immense power, trust, and influence within the ancient Egyptian government. It is no exaggeration to say that he quite literally held the keys to the kingdom's wealth. The tomb in which the sarcophagus was found originally extended approximately 75 feet underground. To reach it, archaeologists had to remove tons of sand while working under extremely harsh conditions. Upon reaching the second underground level, the pink stone sarcophagus came into view, nearly intact, with only a portion of the lid damaged. This suggests that the tomb had once been looted, but due to its massive size and weight, the sarcophagus escaped complete destruction. According to archaeologist Ola El Aghisi of Cairo University, the fact that this sarcophagus has survived for more than 3,300 years in such good condition is extraordinarily rare. It is not merely an archaeological artifact, but something like a time portal, allowing us to see more clearly how the ancient Egyptians honored power, death, and their belief in immortality. And the journey of discovery is far from over. Scientists continue to study this sarcophagus in hopes of uncovering more secrets about Ptah Mwiya and the structure of power during the reign of Ramses II. Who knows? Perhaps from a single pink stone coffin, the history of ancient Egypt may one day need to be rewritten in ways we never imagined. Bottomless deep cave, filled with treasure. Do you believe that hidden within a sacred mountain in China, there could exist a gateway leading straight into the past? A shocking discovery that left archaeologists across the country stunned. A mystery buried for thousands of years suddenly brought to light. And it all began with nothing more than a single strike of a construction shovel. Specifically, on an ordinary day in 1983, while a construction crew was working on the slope of Xianggang Mountain in Guangzhou, a mountain long regarded as sacred and steeped in legend, something unexpected happened. Their excavator struck a massive hollow space beneath the ground. Upon closer inspection, they discovered a pitch-black cave, plunging so deep that its bottom could not be seen. The atmosphere instantly became tense. None of the workers dared to enter, as the darkness and mystery of the cave sent chills down their spines. Instead, they quickly reported the incident to local authorities, who then contacted an archaeological team to investigate the strange discovery. After conducting a preliminary survey, archaeologists reached a startling conclusion. This was not merely a natural cave, but a structure resembling an ancient tomb. Prior to construction, the crew had already researched the site and learned that Xianggang Mountain had once served as a military stronghold in ancient times, a place where many feudal generals chose to be buried, believing it would protect their bloodlines from the upheavals of history. For this reason, discovering an ancient tomb here was not entirely unexpected. However, its sheer scale and depth far exceeded anyone's imagination. Speculation quickly spread. Was this a long-lost treasure vault from antiquity, or perhaps an unexcavated royal mausoleum? After sealing off the area and using specialized equipment to descend deeper, the archaeological team uncovered a vast underground space. Stone walls adorned with intricate carvings emerged, eroded by time, yet still retaining their ancient grandeur. The characters revealed on the walls startled the experts, as they closely resembled script from the Western Han Dynasty. To verify their findings, the team split into two groups. One focused on studying the inscriptions and comparing them with ancient texts, while the other continued excavating the tomb complex. Historical records indicated that during the Western Han period, this region belonged to the Kingdom of Nanyue, an ancient state in southern China founded by Zhao Tuo, a former general of the Qin dynasty. As they ventured deeper, the archaeologists uncovered more and more priceless artifacts: massive bronze tripod cauldrons, elaborately carved screens, gold-plated armor, various weapons such as swords and spears, and even a horse-drawn chariot placed ceremoniously at the center of the tomb. Yet none of these discoveries alone were enough to conclusively identify the individual buried there. That answer only came when the team found a gold jade seal engraved with 4 characters: Seal of Emperor Wen. Emperor Wen was the posthumous title of Zhao Hu, the second king of Nanyue and the son of Zhao Tuo. The discovery of an ancient king's tomb holds immense archaeological significance and serves as a vivid testament to the once glorious history of a civilization that flourished in southern China. What is truly remarkable is that, despite thousands of years passing, the tomb has remained almost completely intact, untouched by looters, as if time itself had chosen to preserve it as an invaluable treasure of history. Nazi German warship Rex rise from the Danube after 80 years. Some things seem as though they have been buried by history forever, but when nature pulls back the curtain, they resurface, cold, rusted, and deeply unsettling. This time, not from the depths of the ocean, but right in the middle of Europe's legendary Danube River. During a severe drought described as the worst in the past 500 years, the water level of the Danube suddenly dropped to a historic low. This dramatic change revealed a chilling sight that stunned both local residents and researchers alike. Dozens of Nazi German warship wrecks from World War II emerging from the riverbed. Few people realized that beneath the surface of this seemingly peaceful river lay an entire warship graveyard. To understand how it got there, we need to turn back the clock to 1944, when World War II was entering its most brutal phase. Under relentless attacks from the Soviet Red Army, Nazi German forces were forced to retreat from Eastern Europe. During this chaotic withdrawal, hundreds of vessels belonging to a German fleet were deliberately scuttled along the Danube to prevent them from falling into enemy hands. For nearly 80 years, these ships lay silently beneath murky waters, gradually becoming an invisible part of the river itself. However, climate change, bringing prolonged heat waves and droughts, has unintentionally dragged them back into the light. According to Reuters, in just one stretch of the Danube near the town of Prahovo in eastern Serbia, more than 20 warship wrecks have become clearly visible. Many of them still retain their original shape, from the hulls and command towers to sharp metal structures protruding above the water's surface. What is even more concerning is that many of these wrecks still contain weapons, ammunition, and unexploded ordnance. As a result, this is no longer merely a historical discovery. It has become a serious threat to navigation safety. When water levels drop, exposed jagged metal can damage fishing boats or cause severe accidents for passing vessels. Velimir Trajilovic, a 74-year-old retired resident of Prahovo, calls these wrecks forgotten dangers. For many years, he has devoted himself to researching them, collecting documents, and even writing an entire book to tell the story of these warships lying silently beneath the Danube. The Danube, you see, is Europe's second longest river, flowing through numerous countries and long celebrated as one of the continent's most majestic waterways. Yet during the recent extreme droughts, the river has narrowed significantly. In Serbia, authorities have been forced to carry out emergency dredging to keep waterways open. In Prahovo alone, several wrecks have narrowed the navigable channel from about 590 feet to just 330 feet, severely disrupting river traffic. In response, in March of this year, the Serbian government opened bids for a salvage and unexploded ordnance removal project with an estimated cost of 29 million euros. These Nazi German warship wrecks are no longer just remnants of war. They are stark reminders of the long-lasting consequences of conflict and climate change. History, even after many decades, can suddenly rise to the surface, right before our eyes. And you, if one day you were walking along the Danube and saw those rusted warships emerging from the water, would you think about war or about the future of humanity itself? 4. 1,900-year-old Roman swords found in a cave in Israel. In the heart of the arid Judean desert, where scorching sunlight beats down day and night and every inch of land is steeped in legend, a small cave hidden behind treacherous cliffs has revealed a secret buried for thousands of years. Within the eerie stillness of the En Gedi Nature Reserve, located just west of the Dead Sea, Israeli archaeologists have announced a stunning discovery: an ancient Roman weapons cache, preserved in remarkably intact condition for more than 2,000 years. Because of its isolated location, the cave that held these priceless artifacts had long been concealed by time and its dangerous terrain. Nestled deep within a cluster of sheer rock faces, it could only be reached by explorers willing to take great risks and show exceptional perseverance. Ironically, this very inaccessibility became the perfect shield, preserving one of the rarest archaeological treasures from the Roman period in ancient Judea. Inside the cave, the research team uncovered 4 Roman swords, each carefully placed inside a wooden scabbard. What makes the discovery extraordinary is that both the scabbards and the blades are preserved in exceptionally good condition, seemingly defying the harsh passage of time. Their handles, finely crafted from wood or metal, have retained their original shape. Of the 4 swords, 3 have blades measuring approximately 24 to 26 inches in length and have been identified as spatha swords, a standard weapon commonly carried by Roman soldiers during military campaigns. The 4th sword has a shorter blade, measuring about 18 inches, suggesting it may have been intended for close-quarters combat or for use in specialized fighting environments. Archaeologists believe these weapons were not simply forgotten. It is highly likely that they were war trophies taken by Jewish rebels who rose up against Roman rule in the 1st century AD. The rebels may have seized the swords during attacks on Roman camps or patrols, and for reasons unknown, concealed them inside this cave, perhaps in preparation for a future uprising, or simply to safeguard their weapons during a time of turmoil. But like many rebellions throughout history, everything came to an abrupt end, leaving the swords lying silently in the darkness for millennia. Following the discovery, experts from the Israel Antiquities Authority, IAA, carefully removed the artifacts from the narrow rock crevices and transported them to a laboratory for conservation and analysis. Initial assessments indicate that the swords perfectly match the design and materials of Roman weapons widely used in ancient Judea, a region that was once a major flashpoint of conflict between the Roman Empire and local Jewish communities. The discovery of these swords is not merely an archaeological achievement, it opens a new window through which to view history from a different perspective, one where stories of rebels, struggles for freedom, and untold fragments of a bloody era are gradually coming to light. How many more artifacts, how many hidden weapons caches, how many forgotten stories still lie concealed beneath the rocks and sands of the Judean desert? And could this discovery point to clues surrounding one of the greatest uprisings against Roman rule ever recorded? From a remote cave in a harsh desert, the past speaks once again, not through words, but through steel. Silent yet powerful, these swords remain as sharp as the message they carry. History, no matter how deeply buried, will always find a way back into the light. And we, the people living today, bear the responsibility to listen, to uncover, and to illuminate the glorious past of those who came before us. 7,000-year-old giant skeleton, discovered in the desert, reveals a world-shocking secret. 2. 7,000-year-old skeletons and the buried secret of the Green Sahara. If we look at the Sahara today, few would believe that this harsh, scorching desert, the hottest and driest place on Earth, was once a fertile land filled with rivers, lakes, and life. Yet history is not always written on the surface. Sometimes it lies hidden deep within stone, sand, and even human bones. Proof of this emerged nearly a century ago when Hungarian explorer Laszlo Almasi crossed the Sahara and entered a mysterious cave. On its walls, He saw images of people swimming. Yes, swimming in the middle of the desert. It sounds impossible, but the paintings were strikingly realistic. While many believed these figures represented spirits or religious rituals, Almasi was convinced they depicted ordinary daily life. And if people were swimming here, then the Sahara must once have contained water. Of course, it would take nearly 100 years for modern science to confirm that belief through DNA evidence. That confirmation came from Takarkori in southern Libya, where scientists successfully decoded the genomes of two naturally preserved mummies dating back approximately 7,000 years. These were not Egyptian-style mummies, but human remains preserved naturally by the cold, dry conditions of a rock shelter. These two ancient women serve as living witnesses to a completely different Sahara, what we now call the Green Sahara. Let us turn back the clock to around 14,000 years ago, when the Ice Age ended. Changes in Earth's axial tilt allowed monsoon winds to move into North Africa. At that time, the Sahara was no longer a sea of sand, but a vast landscape of grasslands, lakes, and forests, home to hippos, elephants, giraffes, and groups of hunter-gatherers. The famous rock paintings of the Tadrat Akakis Mountains were created in this context, capturing scenes of human life alongside rivers, wildlife, and ancient rituals. Takarkori was part of this Green Sahara as well. Inside a cave there, archaeologists once discovered 15 human skeletons, along with baskets woven from marsh grasses, clear evidence that the environment was once wet and lush, completely opposite to what we see today. But the most shocking revelation only emerged when the genes began to speak. Genetic analysis showed that these two women were not closely related to today's sub-Saharan African populations. Instead, their closest genetic relatives were linked to an ancient group from Tafaralt, Morocco, dating back around 15,000 years. Even more remarkably, their ancestors had split from the lineage of modern humans who left Africa approximately 50,000 years ago. This means the people of Takarkori belonged to an ancient human branch that existed largely in isolation, relatively unaffected by later migration waves from Europe or Asia back into Africa. They carried 10 times less Neanderthal DNA than present-day non-African populations, yet still more than sub-Saharan groups, an important signal of an ancient, mixed North African origin. Around 5,000 years ago, the climate shifted once again. The monsoons retreated, and the Sahara returned to arid conditions. Communities that had lived in the Green Sahara were forced to leave their homeland, possibly contributing to the rise of major civilizations such as ancient Egypt. However, the people of Takarkori disappeared. They left no clear descendants, only faint traces of DNA within some North African populations today. Another fascinating insight from this research concerns how civilization spread. The pastoral lifestyle, raising livestock for milk, meat, and blood, may not have spread through large-scale migration, but rather through cultural exchange among local communities. This challenges many long-held theories about prehistoric Africa. As Professor Carlos Lalueza Fox once said, the people of the Green Sahara previously existed only in rock art. Now, thanks to DNA, they are more real than ever. Even though this discovery is based on just 2 genomes, it has already opened the first door to understanding that beneath the sands of the Sahara lies an entire world of history yet to be fully told. Isn't that fascinating? What do you think about the idea that the Sahara was once a lush, fertile land, filled with rivers, life, and human communities? Bleached skeletons, grinning in the desert. Under the scorching sun of the desert southeast of the city of Nazca, Peru, there is a place whose name alone is enough to send chills down many people's spines. There are no towering pyramids here, no glittering treasures of gold and silver like those seen in movies. What awaits travelers in the endless sea of sand is a cemetery. This place is known as the Chowchilla Cemetery, but don't picture the quiet, familiar graves you might expect. Chowchilla is home to rows of bleached white skeletons, seated and leaning against one another, their jaws wide open as if they are grinning directly at the living. The Chowchilla Cemetery dates back to around the 9th century, more than 1,000 years ago. For a very long time, it lay silent in the barren desert, almost completely forgotten, until archaeologists accidentally rediscovered it in the 1920s. Since then, Chowchilla has quickly become one of the most puzzling sites for scientists because the more they study it, the more questions arise. According to experts, these remains belong to the ancient Nazca civilization, which flourished roughly between AD 100 and 800. When people hear the name Nazca, many immediately think of the mysterious giant lines etched into the desert, figures so vast they can only be clearly seen from the air, and whose true purpose remains uncertain to this day. Ironically, much like those enigmatic drawings, the Nazca civilization declined and vanished in a baffling way, leaving behind the Chowchilla Cemetery as a silent message from a distant past. What makes Chowchilla so unsettling is not only the sheer number of skeletons, but also the highly unusual burial practices. Most of the remains were placed in pits in a seated position, leaning back against the walls, as if resting after a long journey, rather than lying flat as in typical burials. At first, many believed this was simply the result of careless burial. Later research, however, revealed that this was in fact an intentional funerary custom of the ancient Nazca people. And then there is the detail that makes nearly everyone who visits shudder: the permanently open jaws of the skeletons. In the hot, arid desert, these stark white bones, their mouths stretched open in what looks like a strange smile, create the eerie sensation that they are watching every step you take. Many visitors find themselves frozen in place for a few seconds, overwhelmed by an unsettling feeling, as if they are being looked back at. However, experts emphasize that this is not a sign of a painful death. Instead, the ancients deliberately manipulated the remains to keep the jaws open, creating an expression that resembles a wide grin. Why they did this remains a mystery. Was it a spiritual ritual, a belief about the afterlife, or some kind of message? To this day, the answer is still unknown. Fortunately, or perhaps ironically, the desert's extreme heat and dryness have acted as a natural preservation chamber. As a result, many of the remains at Chowchilla are still remarkably intact after more than a millennium. Some skeletons even retain their hair, which is surprisingly soft rather than brittle, contrary to what we might expect. Based on the evidence collected, scientists believe that those buried here may have been tribal leaders or individuals of high status within Nazca society. Supporting this theory is the fact that they were originally buried with gold, jewelry, and other valuable artifacts. Sadly, over time, most of these graves were looted by tomb robbers, who carried off nearly all the treasures, leaving behind only the bare skeletons exposed to the desert sun and wind. Today, Chowchilla has become a destination that is both fascinating and terrifying for visitors from around the world. People come not only to see skeletons more than 1,000 years old, but also to ask themselves, are those white smiles a greeting from the past, a warning, or simply the final message of the Nazca civilization to future generations? And honestly, if you were standing face to face with those grins, would you be calm enough to smile back? Because I wouldn't. No matter how brave I try to be, looking at those skeletons still fills me with fear. Nearly 20-inch long skull in Peru challenges everything scientists know about humanity. You know, there are archaeological discoveries that allow scientists to draw conclusions almost at first glance, but there are also cases where the more you look, the more something feels wrong, and the deeper you study, the more confusing it becomes. The mummy discovered in Peru in 2011 is a perfect example of a mystery so unsettling that it leaves researchers completely stunned. That year, Renato Davila Riquelme, director of the private Ritos Andinos Museum in the city of Cusco, was conducting a survey in Andahuaylilas, located in Quispecanchi province in southern Peru, when he came across a mummy with an extraordinarily unusual appearance. From the very first glance, what lay before him looked nothing like any mummy ever documented before, and from that moment on, a haunting question began to trouble researchers. Who or what was this? The most shocking feature was the head. The mummy's skull measured approximately about 19.7 inches, a nearly unimaginable size when compared to a normal human skull. Even more astonishing, the length of the skull was almost equal to the entire length of the body. Meanwhile, the body itself was extremely small, comparable in size to that of a newborn infant. This extreme imbalance alone was enough to make anyone wonder, could this truly be a human biological structure? But the anomalies did not end there. The mummy's teeth raised even more questions. The teeth were fully erupted, yet the number of molars was fewer than in modern humans. The eye sockets were abnormally large, much deeper and wider than those found in standard human anatomy. And then came the detail that caused nearly all conventional explanations to collapse. The fontanelle, or soft spot at the top of the skull, was still open. Under normal circumstances, this feature appears only in infants under 1 year old, before the skull bones have fully fused. Yet here, the mummy had a body length consistent with a fully developed individual. This contradiction pushed researchers into a dead end. If it were an infant, why were the teeth fully developed? If it were an adult, why was the fontanelle still open? And most importantly, no known ancient civilization has ever been documented with a biological form like this. From this point on, bold and controversial theories began to emerge. Some even questioned whether the mummy might be linked to an undocumented human lineage, or perhaps something far more radical, such as a completely different civilization, or even extraterrestrial beings. In search of more serious answers, Renato Davila Riquelme invited 3 leading anthropologists from Spain and Russia to examine the mummy firsthand. After detailed analysis of the bone structure, body proportions, and anatomical features, all 3 experts reached a highly controversial conclusion. This mummy could not be human, at least not belonging to any human branch officially recognized by science. To verify this claim with biological evidence, the research team decided to conduct DNA analysis. A sample was taken from the remains of the eyeball in the right eye socket, one of the few rare soft tissues still preserved. The goal was to identify genetic markers and determine the mummy's true biological origin. But then, the strangest thing happened. The DNA study was reportedly carried out, yet its results were never officially released. There was no scientific paper, no detailed data, and no clear explanation. All that remains is silence, and a mummy with a nearly 20-inch long skull that continues to challenge everything we currently understand about human history, evolution, and even ourselves. So what is it really? A rare and extreme genetic deformity? An extinct biological branch? Or a forgotten piece of a much larger story? If the DNA results were ever made public, would they bring us peace of mind? Or make the mystery even more disturbing? What do you think? If you were standing in front of this mummy, would you trust modern science as it is today, or begin to suspect that human history still holds far too many untold secrets? Or perhaps, even more unsettling, that extraterrestrials truly exist, not just in our imagination? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. A 2,500-year-old biological armor worn by ancient soldiers. Can you imagine this? More than 2,500 years ago, a warrior in what is now northwestern China was buried with a treasure that continues to astonish modern archaeologists to this day. A suit of biological armor, made entirely of leather and crafted with remarkable precision. Designed like overlapping fish scales, it skillfully covered the entire torso, much like a modern tactical vest. This was not merely a piece of armor, it is vivid evidence of ancient military technology, East-West cultural exchange, and the extraordinary creativity of people far ahead of their time. This remarkable armor was discovered in the grave of a man about 30 years old, in a region that is now northwestern China, one of the most important crossroads of the legendary Silk Road. What makes the armor so unusual and valuable is not only its structure, composed of more than 5,500 leather scales, including 5,444 small scales and 140 larger ones, but also the challenging question it raises. How did a defensive armor design known from the Neo-Assyrian civilization, ancient Mesopotamia in what is now Iraq, in the far west, appear in a distant region of eastern Eurasia as early as the 7th century BCE? Archaeologist Patrick Wertmann, who led the research team from the University of Zurich, noted that this armor was far more than standard military equipment. Weighing only about 11 pounds, roughly the same as a light backpack today, it was designed to fit a wide range of body types, allow easy movement, and remain highly effective in combat. This suggests it was not reserved solely for elite warriors, but may have been standard equipment for common soldiers, representing a major breakthrough in how ancient armies were organized and trained. Notably, the overlapping fish scale structure did more than disperse the force of sharp weapons. It also provided flexibility of movement, a critical advantage in close-quarters combat. What is particularly fascinating is how closely this armor resembles depictions of Neo-Assyrian armor carved into ancient stone reliefs, images of warriors from an empire that dominated Mesopotamia during the 7th century BCE. This striking similarity has led researchers to believe that the armor was likely not made locally in China, but instead imported from the West or produced according to Western designs. This opens up rare and compelling evidence of military technology transfer between East and West, occurring centuries before the Silk Road was formally established. Alongside the armor, archaeologists also uncovered burial goods such as pottery, 2 horse cheek pieces made of horn and wood, and even the skull of a sheep, possibly ritual offerings or indicators of the individual's social status. Most notably, a plant thorn caught between the layers of leather scales allowed scientists to precisely date the armor to between 786 and 543 BCE. This significantly enhances the archaeological value of the find, as it not only demonstrates the advanced leatherworking skills of ancient peoples, but also records traces of a transcontinental journey where technology, knowledge, and culture traveled thousands of miles across steppes and deserts. Reconstructing this armor is a feat in itself. Imagine stitching together thousands of small leather pieces, likely cattle hide, layer by layer, arranged in exact proportions to form a living shield that is both durable and perfectly fitted to the human body. This craftsmanship required precision, patience, and a deep understanding of both human anatomy and materials. It was not a product made casually, but the result of an organized production system, possibly commissioned for military forces or high-status individuals in ancient society. For historians, this biological armor is far more than an artifact. It is a vital piece of the larger puzzle of interaction among ancient civilizations. It shows that thousands of years ago, humans already knew how to learn from, replicate, and even improve technologies from distant lands. And through that process, these small leather scales, when linked together, became not only a shield for soldiers on the battlefield, but also a shield preserving the memory and collective intelligence of humanity for generations to come. Roman ceremonial chariot rises from the ashes of Pompeii after 2,000 years of silence. Pompeii, a name that feels both familiar and haunting, was once a thriving Roman city near Naples in Italy's Campania region. At its height, the city was home to around 20,000 residents and served as a vital link in a maritime trade network, connecting goods to Rome and southern Italy via the legendary Appian Way. But in the fateful year AD 79, everything changed in a single moment. The catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius buried Pompeii beneath 13 to 20 feet of ash and pumice, turning the city into a frozen snapshot of the ancient world. More than 2,000 years later, Pompeii continues to astonish humanity. And this time, what emerged from the earth was not houses or wall paintings, but a nearly intact ancient Roman chariot. The discovery was made by archaeologists from the Pompeii Archaeological Park, working in coordination with the Torre Annunziata prosecutor's office during an emergency rescue excavation. They were racing against time to stop illegal tunneling by artifact looters who had been secretly hunting for treasures beneath Pompeii's soil. After digging down nearly 20 feet through layers of volcanic material, the experts reached a 2-level vaulted structure, and right there, an ancient Roman ceremonial chariot slowly came into view. The vehicle was identified as a palentum, an extremely rare type of chariot in Roman archaeology. What truly stunned researchers, however, was its extraordinary state of preservation. All 4 wheels remained intact, the iron components retained their structure, and the bronze and tin decorations were visible in remarkable detail. Even the wood had mineralized, preserving clear impressions of organic materials such as rains and decorative elements. And that's not all. Near the chariot, archaeologists also discovered the remains of 3 horses, one of which was still wearing its harness. When all the evidence was pieced together, the reins, the construction of the vehicle, and the context of the find, experts became almost certain that this was not a cart for transporting goods or everyday travel. On the contrary, it was elaborately crafted, luxurious, and clearly ceremonial in nature. In ancient Roman society, the palentum was a special type of chariot, typically reserved for the elite or for important ceremonial occasions. It is believed that such chariots were used during major festivals, religious rituals, or even to escort brides during Roman wedding ceremonies. Imagine it for a moment. Along the stone-paved streets of ancient Pompeii, a splendid horse-drawn chariot rolling slowly forward amid cheering crowds. That scene now exists only in our imagination, But this chariot is the most vivid proof of the luxury and spectacle of a world long lost. Because of its exceptional value, the chariot was immediately classified as an artifact at extremely high risk of looting. Archaeologists worked continuously and with painstaking care to remove every component and transport the entire find to the Pompeii Archaeological Park. There, a long-term process of restoration, reconstruction, and conservation will take place, ensuring that the chariot can fully tell its story to future generations. As you can see, rising from the ashes of Pompeii, this chariot is not just a rare archaeological discovery, it is a bridge through time, allowing us to better understand the daily life, rituals, and displays of power of the ancient Roman elite. And if a single chariot can sleep beneath the ash for 2,000 years and then reappear in such astonishing condition, just imagine how many more secrets are still waiting to be awakened beneath the ruins of Pompeii. It's hard to say, isn't it? A medieval gold and silver treasure emerges from a field after 800 years. In what seemed like an ordinary field of mud and weeds in the Netherlands, history unexpectedly rose to the surface in a way no one could have imagined. Not a ruined castle or a grand monument, but a glittering hoard of gold and silver, buried for more than 800 years beneath the damp soil of a medieval marsh. The discoverer of this treasure was Lorenzo Reuter, a historian and metal detectorist. During one of his surveys, the signal from his detector suddenly became unusually strong. When he began to dig, what appeared was not a rusty piece of iron or a single stray coin, but an entire collection that would take anyone's breath away. 4 gold pendants, 2 thin strips of gold foil, and 39 ancient silver coins, all resting silently in the cold earth for centuries. According to experts, this was clearly not the property of an ordinary person. The finely crafted jewelry suggests that the owner of the treasure was a wealthy individual, possibly even someone with real power in medieval society. In that era, gold was not merely decoration. It was a symbol of status, authority, and security in times of chaos. One particularly intriguing detail is that the silver coins are not all the same. Lorenzo Reuter noted that some coins were minted locally in the early 13th century, while others bear the markings of the Holy Roman Empire, one of the dominant powers in Europe at the time. Most notably, the youngest coin in the hoard dates to the late 1240s, a period that coincides with prolonged warfare and unrest in the Netherlands. From this point, a very human medieval story begins to take shape. Imagine living in a time of constant war, villages being raided, no banks, no safes, no secure financial system like we have today. How did people protect their wealth? The answer was surprisingly simple. They buried it in the ground. That was the safest bank available at the time. The owner of this treasure likely chose a remote marsh, believing they would return to retrieve it once peace was restored. But for some reason, that person never came back. Today, archaeologists at the National Museum of Antiquities of the Netherlands are continuing to analyze the gold pieces to determine exactly when and where they were made. Even so, the engravings and symbols on the silver coins show clear characteristics of the Friesland region, helping researchers narrow down the treasure's origin. The curator responsible for the museum's medieval collection has stated that they are attempting to identify the treasure's original owner. It may not have belonged to just a wealthy noble. There is even the possibility that it once belonged to a count or another high-ranking figure of the time. However, there is one rather unfortunate reality. This treasure is almost impossible to value in monetary terms. The reason is bittersweet. Gold is an extremely recyclable material. Throughout history, any gold object that was not hidden away was very likely melted down and reused over and over again. Because of this, intact medieval gold treasures like this one are incredibly rare. Its true value lies not in the weight of the gold, but in the history it carries. A treasure that slept underground for 800 years, buried because of war, and resurfacing in the modern age as a reminder that beneath even the most ordinary patch of land, there may lie an entire chapter of history waiting to be told. If you were standing in that field, metal detector in hand, would you ever imagine you were standing above the buried wealth of a medieval count? What do you think you would find? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. A 17,000-year-old kangaroo painting reveals Australia's oldest traces of ancient art. Imagine yourself standing in front of a cold rock face in the wilderness of Western Australia, where time seems to have come to a standstill. On the surface of that rock appears the image of a kangaroo measuring nearly 6.6 feet long. Not a modern painting, not a decorative artwork, but a drawing that has existed for more than 17,000 years. And remarkably, this painting has just been confirmed by archaeologists as the oldest intact cave painting ever discovered in Australia. Try to imagine how you would feel in that moment. If you can't quite picture it yet, let's travel back in time together to February 22nd, 2025, when a team of experts from the University of Melbourne discovered this artwork inside a cave in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, located on the traditional lands of the Unkango people. The painting depicts a kangaroo rendered at nearly life-size scale, with even its genitalia clearly shown, a detail that demonstrates the artist was not working casually, but carefully observing a creature deeply familiar to them. Using radiocarbon dating, scientists determined that the painting dates back between approximately 17,100 and 17,500 years, with the most reliable estimate placing it at around 17,300 years old. Based on these findings, Dr. Damien Finch, the lead author of the study, stated that this is the oldest and most ancient intact cave painting ever found in Australia. However, he also openly acknowledged that the world record still belongs to a cave painting of a wild pig in Indonesia, dated to about 45,000 years ago. Of course, what truly captivated researchers was not only the painting's age, but also its artistic style. By comparing the kangaroo image with surrounding artworks and analyzing the sequence in which they were painted, scientists determined that it belongs to the earliest artistic phase known as naturalism. This style began around 28,000 BCE and is characterized by animals depicted at real-life scale, with minimal symbolism and a strong emphasis on direct observation. For archaeologists, this discovery is like a door opening into the past. Through these simple yet deliberate brushstrokes, they can begin to imagine the world in which these ancient artists lived, a cooler, drier environment than today, dating to the final stages of the Ice Age. While we may never know exactly what the artist was thinking when they painted that kangaroo more than 600 generations ago, the artwork reveals a profound connection between ancient humans and the natural world around them. Dr. Sven Oosman, from the School of Social Sciences at the University of Western Australia, went even further, suggesting that this painting could offer deeper insights into the cultural history of Indigenous peoples. He noted a striking similarity between the Australian kangaroo painting and the world's oldest known cave painting in Indonesia. From this, he proposed the possibility of an ancient cultural connection, and that rock art in Australia may have emerged much earlier than current evidence has so far revealed. Looking ahead, researchers say their next goal is to more precisely determine the beginning and end of each artistic phase by analyzing stylistic differences among cave paintings in the Kimberley region. This will undoubtedly be a challenging journey as time has erased countless traces of the past. But who knows? Perhaps from a single kangaroo painted 17,000 years ago, we may gradually piece together a more complete picture of the early history of human art and culture. It's entirely possible, after all. This world is full of wonders and mysteries, isn't it? 113-million-year-old dinosaur footprints. Three-toed dinosaurs once strode across wet mud, and right beside them appeared what looked like human footprints. Hard to believe, isn't it? Yet this strange story is backed by physical evidence and begins with a very real river called the Paluxy River, located in the state of Texas, USA. The Paluxy River flows through the heart of Dinosaur Valley State Park, a site long famous for its numerous fossilized dinosaur footprints dating back approximately 113 million years to the Cretaceous period. For decades, this area has been regarded as an open-air museum of the Cretaceous, helping scientists reconstruct what the world looked like when giant reptiles still ruled the Earth. However, Paluxy tells more than just a dinosaur story. It has also planted a major question in the human mind, one that has sparked intense controversy for decades. The story began in 1969 when Stan Taylor conducted excavations in the Paluxy riverbed. During his work, he unexpectedly discovered two footprints that closely resembled human footprints. At first, many people believed it was simply a mistake or a misinterpretation, but as excavation continued and tons of heavy limestone were removed from the riverbed surface, new discoveries made the mystery increasingly difficult to explain. Over time, a total of 14 human-like footprints were uncovered. They were arranged in fairly regular left-to-right pairs, closely resembling the walking pattern of modern humans. What truly shocked researchers was that these footprints were not isolated. Some images show the 14 human footprints directly intersecting with a trail of three-toed dinosaur footprints, forming an angle of about 30 degrees. Even more striking, they appear within the same geological formation, on the same sedimentary layer, and in some cases, human footprints even overlap dinosaur footprints. If this were merely a natural coincidence, why would the alignment be so disturbingly precise? The way these footprints formed raises even more questions. They were imprinted in a special layer of wet mud that, after being stepped on, hardened rapidly within just a few days, allowing the impressions to be preserved almost intact. Over long periods, although the surface becomes very hard, it gradually erodes due to weathering. This erosion allows researchers to determine which footprints were formed earlier and which came later, based on their degree of wear. And from this very characteristic, a shocking conclusion was proposed. The human footprints and dinosaur footprints at Paluxy may have been created at the same time. In other words, if this conclusion is correct, it suggests that humans and dinosaurs once coexisted on Earth. Yet this idea directly contradicts modern scientific understanding of evolutionary history, which states that dinosaurs became extinct tens of millions of years before humans ever appeared. So what is the real question here? Are we missing part of the truth about the past? Does Darwin's theory of evolution truly explain everything? Or are there still missing pieces yet to be discovered? And why, to this day, has humanity not found clear fossils of a true transitional stage between apes and humans? The silent footprints beneath the Paluxy River do not provide answers, but they are enough to make us pause, think, and ask ourselves, could Earth's history be far more complex than what we were taught? A massive northern Song dynasty stone mural in China emerges after being buried under mud. Hidden beneath layers of mud and sediment that accumulated over hundreds of years, at the Zhouqiao Archaeological Site in Kaifeng City, Henan Province, Chinese archaeologists unexpectedly uncovered a discovery that left the academic world stunned. What they found was not a small artifact or scattered pottery fragments, but two enormous stone murals dating back to the Northern Song dynasty, a period spanning from 960 to 1127 AD. Even more remarkable, these murals are believed to be the largest stone relief murals ever discovered in China to date. The two murals were carved directly into stone, featuring decorative motifs associated with auspicious symbolism in traditional Chinese culture. Most striking is the image of cranes flying among clouds, a powerful symbol of longevity, nobility, and prosperity. The designs were not arranged randomly. Instead, they were laid out symmetrically along the north and south banks on the eastern side of Zhouqiao Bridge. Each mural stands approximately 10.8 feet tall, creating an impression that is both majestic and solemn, like a stone wall silently narrating history in the heart of the ancient city. Even the visible dimensions alone are overwhelming. The mural on the southern bank stretches about 76.1 feet in length, while the northern mural measures roughly 69.6 feet long. However, this represents only the portion that has been excavated so far. According to archaeologists' estimates, the original combined length of both murals may have reached nearly 328 feet, with a total carved surface area of approximately 4,300 square feet. These figures reveal a monumental scale that far exceeds previous assumptions about stone carving art during the Northern Song dynasty. Beyond their sheer size, the murals' true value lies in their artistic sophistication. Experts note that in terms of scale, subject matter, and stylistic execution, these works represent the highest standards of stone relief art from the Northern Song period. Every line is delicately carved, the composition carefully balanced, showcasing the master-level craftsmanship of artisans from more than 1,000 years ago. Together, they reflect the peak technical and aesthetic achievements of the dynasty. To fully understand the significance of this discovery, one must consider Zhouqiao Bridge, where the murals were found. The bridge was originally constructed between 780 and 783 AD during the Tang dynasty, spanning the Grand Canal, a vital waterway connecting northern and southern China and playing a crucial role in trade and grain transportation. Zhouqiao Bridge once stood on the central axis of Kaifeng, bearing witness to centuries of historical change. However, in 1642, a catastrophic flood of the Yellow River submerged the area. Thick layers of silt buried the bridge and surrounding structures, causing them to vanish from sight for centuries. Only in modern times, through large-scale archaeological excavations, have these long-hidden secrets begun to re-emerge. So far, archaeologists working at the Zhouqiao site have uncovered a total of 117 different relics and structural remains. This number serves as a powerful reminder that Chinese history, especially the Northern Song period, still holds countless undiscovered stories. Each layer of earth removed not only reveals artifacts, but also raises new questions about a civilization once considered a pinnacle of Eastern art, technology, and cultural achievement. And who knows, perhaps beneath even deeper layers of mud, there are still masterpieces waiting silently to be awakened. The jade vessel that has baffled archaeologists for 30 years. The story began purely by chance in 1990 when a farmer in Ongxiang County, Chengde City, Hunan Province, China was digging the ground as he did every day. Suddenly, the earth beneath his feet collapsed, revealing an unusually deep pit. Sensing that this was no ordinary incident, the farmer immediately reported it to local authorities. And from this seemingly accidental hole, one of the most controversial archaeological discoveries in modern China was brought to light. After experts arrived and conducted an initial assessment, they quickly confirmed that the site marked the upper portion of a large-scale ancient tomb. However, it was not until 1991 that a full-scale excavation, equipped with proper personnel and equipment, was officially launched. Thanks to careful preparation, the excavation proceeded smoothly and continuously delivered discoveries that thrilled the archaeological community. Inside the tomb, dated to approximately 1,700 years ago, archaeologists uncovered a total of 78 artifacts made of gold, silver, and jade, along with many other valuable relics such as bronzeware, lacquerware, and most notably, a gold seal. The tomb's owner was soon identified as Liu Hong, a renowned general from the late Western Jin dynasty. This identity alone made it clear that the tomb's scale and status were anything but ordinary. Yet among the many glittering treasures, one artifact drew particular attention from experts. It was a cylindrical jade object, resembling a small vessel. What made it stand out was not its material value in gold or silver, but the fact that its true function remains a complete mystery to this day. The jade vessel measures approximately 4.1 inches in height, with the same 4.1-inch diameter, and is crafted with extraordinary precision. Typically, the finest jade artifacts are expected to be highly translucent and nearly flawless. This vessel, however, defies that expectation. It is made from extremely high-quality jade, yet it is not transparent. Even so, experts still regard it as a rare masterpiece on a global scale, as its artistic value far exceeds conventional standards. The most captivating feature lies in its carvings. The upper portion of the vessel is densely yet neatly decorated with motifs of clouds, dragons, and qilin, intricately interwoven and vividly rendered. The lower body is divided into 3 major decorative scenes, depicting mythological battles such as immortals fighting dragons, tigers battling dragons, and dragons clashing with bears. The base of the vessel is supported by 3 bear-shaped legs, giving it a sense of both stability and sacred symbolism. All of these elements reflect ancient people's aspirations for immortality, longevity, and prosperity. Experts believe that craftsmanship of this level could only have been achieved by master artisans, and that the techniques used may even surpass the general standards of the Jin dynasty. As a result, some scholars speculate that this vessel was a treasured personal possession of Liu Hong during his lifetime and was buried with him as a particularly important grave good. However, the greatest controversy still revolves around the vessel's function. Its shape closely resembles 2 wine-warming vessels from the Han dynasty that were excavated in Shanxi province in 1962. The problem is that this jade vessel is too small to serve as a wine container, yet too large to be used as a drinking cup. In ancient times, wine was customarily poured into cups before drinking, so the wine vessel theory was quickly rejected by many experts. And to this day, despite being valued at up to $137 million, this mysterious jade vessel has still refused to reveal its true purpose. An invaluable artifact, an unanswered question, and a reminder that history sometimes chooses to keep a few of its secrets hidden from humanity. X-raying. 3,000-year-old human remains in China. Archaeologists were stunned by this discovery. Archaeology has always been a field full of surprises and mystery, opening a gateway to untold stories from the past. From secret human remains that conceal harsh and unsettling truths, to priceless artifacts, to ancient tombs hiding earth-shattering secrets, archaeological discoveries do more than illuminate history. They ignite our curiosity. Beneath an old tree, a familiar field, or a seemingly peaceful stretch of land may lie the traces of people who lived hundreds or even thousands of years ago. Archaeology is the key that unlocks this door through time, a place where the past does not rest quietly in books, but emerges through bones, artifacts, and mysteries that send a chill of curiosity down our spines. Imagine this. As archaeologists dig deep into the ground, they suddenly come upon an intact set of human remains, or an ancient tomb carefully buried beneath the roots of a centuries-old tree. Why did ancient people choose that place? Who were they? How did they live their lives, and what led them to be buried in such unusual ways? Each discovery is not just a piece of history. It is an unresolved story, waiting for us to listen. Today, thanks to modern technology, humans can reconstruct the appearance of massive creatures that once dominated the Earth millions of years ago, or trace the remnants of civilizations that have vanished without a trace. Yet the more we uncover, the more we realize that history still holds countless secrets lying dormant. Some truths force us to question what we think we know, while others completely reshape what we once believed to be true. Why is that? What unexpected revelations might discoveries we have never known about still bring to light? And how many historical mysteries remain beyond our ability to decipher? Join us as we explore these fascinating archaeological discoveries and imagine the stories that each ancient site may tell, right here in this video. 3,000-year-old human remains reveal a chilling secret about brutal punishments in ancient China. Did you know that some archaeological discoveries, when brought to light, do more than simply retell history? They leave listeners silent for a few moments because of how disturbing they are. A set of human remains that lay undisturbed beneath the soil of China for more than 3,000 years is one such story. There was no gold or silver, no jade or priceless treasures. Instead, what scientists uncovered were traces of a cruel punishment that once existed in ancient society. This story begins at an ancient burial site near the city of Baoji in Shanxi province, a region closely associated with the Zhou dynasty in Chinese history. There, researchers from Peking University discovered the skeletal remains of a woman. Initial analysis indicated that she died at approximately 30 to 35 years of age. What immediately drew the attention of experts, however, was her right foot, which had been completely severed. At once, numerous hypotheses were proposed. Could this woman have suffered from a serious illness, such as diabetes, leprosy, or cancer? Or perhaps she had experienced a severe accident that required amputation? Yet after X-ray examinations and thorough biological analysis, all of these possibilities were ruled out. There were no signs of disease and no evidence of traumatic injury caused by an accident. Gradually, a chilling truth emerged. This may be the earliest known evidence of foot amputation as a form of punishment in Chinese history. This punishment was known as Yue, one of the infamous 5 punishments of ancient China. It existed for nearly 1,000 years, until around 200 BCE. Under this penal system, individuals were not only stripped of their freedom, but also subjected to permanent physical mutilation. The 5 punishments included facial tattooing for public humiliation, removal of the nose, foot amputation, castration, and ultimately, execution. Just hearing about it is enough to convey how harsh society was at that time, isn't it? What truly sent chills down the scientists' spines was the research finding that this woman did not die immediately after her foot was amputated. On the contrary, she survived for at least 5 more years following the punishment. Imagine enduring such an ordeal more than 3 millennia ago, without painkillers, without antibiotics, and under extremely primitive medical conditions. Surviving an amputation under those circumstances would have been unimaginably horrific. Of course, survival did not mean a normal life. Those years were likely filled with pain, social stigma, and the lifelong mark of guilt she was forced to bear. According to historical tradition, this punishment system dates back to the Xia dynasty, around the 17th to 15th centuries BCE and was influenced by punitive practices of ancient Miao tribes. Each punishment was not only meant to penalize the individual, but also to serve as a warning and deterrent to the entire community. Another notable detail, pointed out by researcher Li Nan, concerns the specific rules of the Yue punishment. Lesser offenses resulted in the amputation of the left foot, while more serious crimes led to the amputation of the right foot. Since the woman found in the Shanxi tomb had her right foot severed, scientists believe she must have committed a grave crime under the laws of that era. Previously, in 1999, the remains of another woman with an amputated arm were discovered. However, at that time, archaeologists focused more on the burial artifacts found with the body, causing this crucial clue about ancient punishments to be overlooked. Only with the advancement of modern technology have these seemingly silent remains begun to speak, revealing the darkest chapters of history. At this point, many people may find themselves asking, how could such brutal punishments exist in an ancient society celebrated for its rich culture and philosophy? It is difficult to answer that question. But as you can see, history is clearly not made up of glory alone. It is also filled with scars that humanity has inflicted upon its own kind. A dismembered fetus beneath a church basement and the chilling secret of medieval abortion practices. What if I told you that a tiny set of remains, lying silently beneath the basement of an ancient church, could reveal a harsh truth that history once deliberately chose to forget? Would you believe it? It sounds hard to believe at first, doesn't it? I felt the same way, skeptical and uncertain. And yet, as unbelievable as it seems, this story truly did happen. In 2009, a powerful 6.3 magnitude earthquake devastated the city of L'Aquila in central Italy, claiming the lives of more than 300 people and causing the collapse of numerous historic structures, including a well-known church. When the church floor cracked open, a previously hidden underground chamber, once used as a burial space, was discovered. Inside were several mummies and ancient skeletal remains. And among the skeletons of adults, archaeologists uncovered something that left them stunned. The remains of a fetus estimated to be about 29 weeks old. At first glance, it might appear to be nothing more than an unfortunate fetus that died centuries ago. But as researchers began a closer examination, things quickly took an unsettling turn. Initial studies determined that the fetus likely died around 1840. However, what truly captured the attention of scientists was not its age, but the condition of the skeleton itself. X-ray imaging revealed that the fetal bones were no longer connected in their natural anatomical positions. The skull had been separated, the spine was no longer intact, and the arms had been detached from the body. In simple terms, this was not a fetus that had died naturally in the womb. There were clear signs of deliberate human intervention. From this evidence, a research team led by Professor Ruggero D'Anastasio of the University of Chieti proposed a controversial yet compelling hypothesis. The fetus may have been the victim of a procedure known as embryotomy, a method of abortion practiced during the Middle Ages and continuing into the 19th century. So what exactly is embryotomy? Put simply, it involved the use of crude tools, sometimes even wooden branches, to dismember a fetus inside the mother's womb so that it could be removed piece by piece. This method was typically employed in cases of obstructed labor or when carrying the fetus to term was believed to threaten the mother's life. What makes this procedure especially horrifying is that it was performed regardless of whether the fetus was alive or already deceased, and without anesthesia or any form of medical safety as we know it today. Just imagining it is enough to send chills down your spine. In an era when medical knowledge was extremely limited, women undergoing such procedures faced unimaginable physical pain, along with an extremely high risk of infection and death. And yet, in many cases, this may have been their only chance of survival. What do you think about that? As for me, I can hardly bring myself to imagine it. What troubled researchers even more was that, after analyzing the pelvic and jaw bones, they were still unable to determine the fetus's sex. The skeleton was simply too underdeveloped and had been severely damaged by the procedure. However, the fact that these remains were buried beneath a church basement suggests something unexpected. The local community at the time still showed a certain degree of respect for the fetus, despite its painful death and the taboo nature of the circumstances surrounding it. Experts have stated that they plan to carefully reassemble all remaining bone fragments and restore them to their correct anatomical positions, as a way of expressing belated respect for this tiny life, an act of humanity carried out nearly 2 centuries later. And really, despite everything, that is something quite meaningful, isn't it? A 1,600-year-old Roman ghost ship lying beneath the feet of beachgoers, unknown to anyone. Have you ever imagined that just beneath a thin layer of sand on a crowded beach where people sunbathe and play every day, there could be a nearly intact 1,600-year-old ancient ship hidden below? It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? Yet this discovery is very real, and it left the entire research community stunned. You see, about 1,600 years ago, when the Roman Empire still dominated the Mediterranean, a ship known as Ses Fontanelles met with disaster while anchored in Palma Bay, off the coast of present-day Spain. Violent waves swallowed the vessel along with all of its cargo, burying it beneath sand and seawater. After that event, Ses Fontanelles disappeared completely, leaving no trace behind, as if it had never existed. Time passed. Century after century, people lived there, swam in the sea, built settlements, and developed tourism along that very shoreline. No one suspected that just about 164 feet from the beach, at a depth of only around 6.5 feet of water, an ancient Roman ship was still sleeping beneath a thin layer of sand. It was not until 2019 that the unbelievable finally happened. During a coastal survey project, researchers unexpectedly detected unusual signs beneath the sandy seabed. Slowly, Ses Fontanelles Assis began to emerge. What astonished everyone was not merely the discovery of the ship itself, but its condition. It was almost perfectly preserved, as if it had sunk only yesterday. The vessel measures approximately 39 feet in length, and its wooden hull still clearly retains its structure. On board were hundreds of two-handled amphorae, the distinctive containers of ancient Rome, with rounded bodies and narrow necks, neatly arranged just as they had been before the shipwreck. These amphorae were once used to transport wine, olive oil, and garum, a famous fermented fish sauce of the Roman era. Remarkably, most of the amphorae were found completely intact, rather than shattered, as one might expect from an ancient shipwreck. And that was not all. Archaeologists also uncovered astonishingly delicate details: several leather shoes still retaining their shape, a fragment of woven fabric, and various everyday items. Looking at them, one might feel as though the ship had sunk only a few years ago, not that it had lain undisturbed for 16 centuries. So what created this apparent miracle? The answer lies in the sand and the unique marine environment of the area. Fine sand quickly covered the ship, isolating it from strong currents, bacteria, and oxygen, the very elements that normally cause wood and artifacts to decay rapidly. This seemingly simple burial became the perfect protective layer, preserving both the ship and its cargo in an almost original state until today. There is one more detail that has sparked widespread curiosity. No human remains were found on board. This suggests that the crew may have managed to swim safely to shore, or perhaps they were swept away by the waves before the ship fully sank. No one knows for certain, but regardless, when Ses Fontanelles was discovered, it proved to be far more than just a shipwreck. It is a true time capsule, telling the story of trade, daily life, and maritime technology in ancient Rome, exactly the kind of story that archaeologists and lovers of exploration have long been eager to uncover. The mysterious structures of the cloud forest, people in the Andes. Hidden among layers of white clouds, stretched across the steep eastern slopes of the Andes, where only the most daring would ever venture, lies an ancient culture that has awakened after centuries of being forgotten. They are known as the Cloud Forest People, the evocative name given to the Chachapoya, a civilization that once flourished, yet was long obscured by the overwhelming shadow of the Inca Empire. Now, thanks to modern archaeological technology, mysteries once thought to be buried deep beneath dense forest canopies are emerging once again, opening an entirely new chapter in our understanding of the ancient world in this rugged and remote region. This revelation comes from a large-scale survey led by the World Monuments Fund, WMF, in Peru, where archaeologists deployed LiDAR technology, an advanced tool that uses laser pulses to penetrate dense vegetation and capture highly accurate images of the ground below. The survey area lies deep within Rio Abaseo National Park, in the Gran Pahatén region, a site previously known only for a handful of scattered ceremonial structures. What LiDAR revealed, however, was astonishing. More than 100 ancient architectural structures hidden along steep mountain slopes, forming a vast, complex, and deliberately planned-built landscape. This was not merely a new discovery. It fundamentally overturned previous interpretations of Gran Pajaten. According to Juan Pablo de la Puente, executive director of WMF Peru, this area was not a single, isolated outlying temple as once believed. Instead, it appears to have been a crucial node within the broader territorial network of the Chachapoya. It may have served as an administrative center, a ceremonial hub, or even a strategic point of communication within the rugged cloud forest, a place where the cloud forest people learned to survive and thrive with extraordinary resilience. LiDAR imagery shows that the Chachapoya designed circular buildings, winding stairways, layered stone walls, and an intricate network of pathways running along the mountain ridges. These structures are not only aesthetically striking, but also reflect a high level of engineering skill in an extremely harsh environment, one marked by heavy rainfall, constant humidity, and the ever-present risk of landslides. Notably, archaeologists have also begun active conservation efforts, reinforcing stone walls, filling structural joints, and using specially mixed clay to stabilize foundations. Researchers hope this approach will serve as a model for other archaeological sites located within similar ecosystems. This discovery not only helps reconstruct a crucial part of pre-Inca civilization in South America, but also compels us to ask deeper questions. Who were the Chachapoya really? How were they able to build entire cities perched among the clouds with such remarkable technical skill and urban planning? And could there be even more yet to be uncovered within the Andean rainforests, where perpetual mist continues to conceal the past? In this journey into the ancient world, the cloud forest people have begun to speak, and perhaps what they left behind on these mist-covered slopes is only the first chapter of an epic story that is still being written. What do you think? Or do you have a different perspective? Feel free to share your thoughts by leaving a comment below this video. A 13-year-old girl who slept for 4,900 years beside a pyramid, an unrevealed mystery of ancient Egypt. Egypt, the land of mysteries, where millennia-old sands have never stopped telling their stories. Yet amid the colossal sphinxes, towering pyramids, and mummies that have become iconic symbols, a newly revealed story has emerged. One that has not only stunned archaeologists, but also left the entire world holding its breath. It is the story of a young girl, only 13 years old, who rested undisturbed for 4,900 years in an ancient tomb beside the Meidum Pyramid, south of modern-day Cairo. She was not a princess, nor was there any evidence to suggest she belonged to the royal family, and yet the manner in which she was buried makes her impossible to overlook. Her body was found in a tightly flexed position, knees drawn close to her chest, as if she were sleeping in a squatting posture, a burial pose never previously recorded in any known ancient Egyptian funerary ritual. She was not placed in a coffin, nor wrapped in linen like traditional mummies. Instead, beside her lay two massive bull skulls, animals considered sacred in ancient Egyptian culture, along with three ancient ceramic vessels. So who was she, to be buried with such solemn and deliberate offerings? That question remains unanswered to this day. Archaeologists have described the find as one of the strangest and most mysterious discoveries of recent years. The tomb was located within a cemetery once enclosed by thick brick walls, now completely collapsed. Scientific tests indicate that the girl died approximately 4,600 years ago, a time frame that closely aligns with the age of the Meidum Pyramid itself. And that very pyramid, near which the girl was laid to rest, is also a structure that continues to puzzle researchers. Originally, the Meidum Pyramid was built as a step pyramid by Pharaoh Huni, who ruled around 2599 BCE. However, his successor, Pharaoh Snefru, did not stop there. He ordered the structure to be transformed into a true pyramid, not only as a symbol of power, but as a major breakthrough in ancient Egyptian architecture. Snefru did not merely improve Meidum, he went on to build several additional pyramids, structures that can be seen as experimental versions leading toward an even greater achievement. And then history would name Khufu, Snefru's son, who carried forward his father's vision by constructing the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a monument that continues to inspire awe to this day. Could it be that, among these monumental achievements, the young girl was also part of a much larger story, a missing piece in the evolutionary journey of Egyptian civilization? Why was she buried there, right beside what was once an architectural laboratory of one of history's greatest pharaohs? Was she the daughter of a gifted architect, or someone who held a special role among the elite? Or perhaps, as one unsettling hypothesis suggests, she was a sacrificial offering, chosen to carry prayers to the gods for the success of a monumental construction still underway? For now, all of these remain only theories. What is certain, however, is that the story of this 13-year-old girl and her resting place has opened a new doorway through which we can re-examine the past, a past where countless unsolved mysteries still lie buried beneath the scorching sands of the desert. And who knows, after this discovery, how many more secrets might still be waiting to be told? Village hidden for thousands of years, revealing a complete Neolithic society in France. Did you know that in a quiet region of northeastern France, history stretching back thousands of years can emerge simply by digging a few layers into the ground? That place is the Marais de Saint-Gond archaeological site, a landscape that silently preserved traces of human life from the Neolithic period, until archaeologists accidentally tapped into this underground current of the past. The discovery began quite by chance. While identifying a trench intended for installing a fence in the commune of Val-des-Marais, located about 85 miles east of Paris, archaeologists noticed signs beneath the soil that were anything but ordinary. From a single narrow trench, a much larger picture gradually came into focus, a long-term settlement dating back thousands of years to the Neolithic era. According to professional assessments, this prehistoric settlement surrounded a hill and covered an area of approximately 2.5 acres. While that may not sound large today, for the Neolithic period it represents a remarkably significant scale. This clearly indicates that the site was not a temporary shelter, but a well-organized village, planned, structured, and home to a stable community. During excavation, archaeologists uncovered a building with an apse-shaped roof, a rare architectural form for this period. The structure was located near a massive refuse pit measuring up to about 66 feet in diameter, along with several nearby wells. This detail alone raises an intriguing question. How did Neolithic people already understand how to organize living areas, manage waste, and exploit water resources in such a systematic way? Researcher Rémi Martineau of the French National Center for Scientific Research, CNRS, who was directly involved in the discovery during the past summer, described the site as the final missing piece archaeologists had been searching for over many years. According to him, this find marks a major turning point, allowing scientists to better understand the economic, social, and territorial organization of Neolithic communities. In other words, the foundations of complex society formed far earlier than we once believed. And the village itself is only part of the story. The entire Marais de Saint-Gond region has left researchers in awe. Across an area of roughly 1,110 acres, archaeologists have identified 15 large flint quarries, a vital raw material for prehistoric life. Beneath the surface lie 135 carefully constructed underground chambers, demonstrating impressive excavation and reinforcement techniques. In addition, the area contains 5 stone-lined alleys, 10 axe polishing stations, and evidence of ancient fields that were deliberately burned before cultivation. This proves that these early communities were not merely hunting and gathering, they were managing land, producing tools, and organizing labor on a communal level. Another smaller yet deeply meaningful discovery was an oval-shaped object made of mother-of-pearl, drilled with 2 holes. Researchers believe it may be a precursor to a button, dating back approximately 3,300 to 3,400 years ago. A seemingly ordinary item, yet one that offers an intimate glimpse into daily life, clothing, and aesthetic sensibilities in ancient times. All of these discoveries are the result of a 20-year research program led by CNRS, involving dozens of scientists and archaeology students from France and abroad. And perhaps most intriguing of all is this: Marais de Saint-Gond has not yet been fully excavated. Do you think that beneath those layers of soil, more secrets are still waiting to be awakened? Ready to continue telling the story of a Neolithic society far more complex than we ever imagined? As for me, I absolutely think so. After all, when it comes to the ancient world, mysteries are everywhere. Astonishing treasure inside a 4,000-year-old ancient Egyptian tomb. There are places where every strike of an archaeologist's tool does not just hit stone, but reaches straight into history. Saqqara, the ancient necropolis near the former capital of Memphis, is one such place. And in early 2024, this familiar site once again made the world hold its breath when a stone tomb more than 4,000 years old was discovered, nearly intact, in the heart of the Egyptian desert. The tomb has been dated to approximately 2649 to 2150 BCE, placing it firmly within the Old Kingdom of Egypt. What makes it especially remarkable is that it does not stand alone. Instead, it lies within a densely packed area filled with tombs and artifacts from multiple historical periods. This clearly shows that Saqqara was not important during just one era, but was regarded as a sacred burial ground for thousands of years, chosen by ancient Egyptians as the final resting place for significant individuals. Nozomu Kawai, the Japanese archaeologist leading the excavation team, emphasized that these discoveries hold immense historical value. This is not merely an ancient tomb, but a kind of living archive, one that helps scientists better understand the daily life, religious beliefs, and artistic traditions of ancient Egypt. And indeed, what was found inside has left everyone in awe. During the excavation, the international research team uncovered ancient architectural features, a tomb preserved in near-perfect condition, and a remarkable collection of finely crafted artifacts. Most striking of all were the remains of an individual buried with a decorative mask adorned with vivid colors. Even after thousands of years, the pigments remain clearly visible, testament to the extraordinary craftsmanship, pigment-making techniques, and artistic vision of ancient Egyptian artisans. Simply looking at the mask is enough to suggest that the person buried beneath it was far from ordinary. The discoveries did not stop there. Archaeologists also uncovered the resting place of a child dating back to the Second Dynasty, approximately 2890 to 2686 BCE. This find is particularly significant, as child burials from such an early period are extremely rare. It offers a new perspective on how ancient Egyptians treated children after death, and on their beliefs about the afterlife. Could it be that even the youngest lives were carefully prepared for the journey into eternity? In addition, at another ancient tomb within the Saqqara complex, researchers discovered a coffin from the 18th dynasty, dating to 1550 to 1295 BCE. Inside the coffin was an alabaster stone vessel, preserved in nearly flawless condition. After more than 3,000 years, its surface remains smooth and its contours sharply defined, clear evidence of the refined craftsmanship and exceptional preservation techniques mastered by ancient Egyptians. As you may know, Saqqara itself is already famous as a vast necropolis belonging to ancient Memphis and has been recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. The area contains more than a dozen pyramids, the most prominent being the Step Pyramid of Djoser, the first step pyramid in human history. This groundbreaking structure laid the foundation for the development of the true pyramidal forms that would follow. Surrounding Saqqara are other major pyramid complexes at Abu Sur, Dashur, and Abu Ruwaish, together forming a vast archaeological landscape layered with history. In recent years, the Egyptian government has continued to announce new archaeological discoveries, not only to shed light on the past, but also to capture global attention. Each tomb that is opened, each artifact brought into the light, makes the story of ancient Egyptian civilization more vivid than ever. And Saqqara, with its treasures still sleeping beneath the sand, has clearly not told its full story yet. Beneath those scorching desert sands, many secrets are surely still waiting to be awakened, ready to continue telling the glorious story of ancient Egypt. A 2,500-year-old skeleton in a bog that stunned experts. When we think of bogs, most of us imagine wild vegetation, dark and desolate landscapes, places that feel eerie, cold, and unsettling. And honestly, that image isn't wrong. But in archaeology, bogs are something else entirely. They are like history's own time capsules, capable of preserving stories that can still speak to us today. A striking example came in October 2023, when human bone fragments were discovered deep beneath the dense black peat of the Belugi Bog in Northern Ireland. The remains were first found by the Police Service of Northern Ireland, PSNY. At first glance, everything pointed to a modern crime, perhaps a body deliberately hidden in a remote bog. But history has a way of playing tricks on us. As the investigation continued and specialists examined the remains more closely, the story took a completely different turn. Experts soon confirmed that this was not a victim of the 21st century, but a person who had died approximately 2,500 years ago. In other words, when this individual passed away, the idea of England as a nation had not even begun to form. And yet, this ancient individual had nearly been classified as part of a modern criminal case, an astonishing twist of fate. What truly amazed scientists was the extraordinary level of preservation. Thanks to the unique environment of peat bogs, low oxygen levels, high acidity, and stable temperatures, parts of the body had survived in remarkable condition. Skin tissue, fingernails from the left hand, toenails, and even one kidney were found to be nearly intact. Just imagine that for a moment. Parts of a human body surviving for thousands of years, preserved by nothing more than mud and peat. Of course, not everything was perfectly preserved. The skull was missing and the bones were scattered rather than arranged anatomically. But modern science is rarely defeated so easily. Through advanced analysis, experts determined that the remains belonged to a male, and the most heartbreaking detail of all is his age at death. He was only between 13 and 17 years old. A prehistoric teenager, someone who never had the chance to live a full life, had unknowingly become a silent witness to history. Even more remarkably, this marked the first time in Northern Ireland that scientists used radiocarbon dating to determine the time of death for bog remains. The analysis was carried out at the 14 Chrono Centre at Queen's University, Belfast. The results showed that the individual died between 2,000 and 2,500 years ago, perfectly aligning with other archaeological evidence. History, science, and the bog itself had finally reached the same conclusion. The investigation didn't stop there. Researchers also used ground-penetrating radar to survey the surrounding area. The scans revealed that the remains were located at a depth of about 3.3 feet below the current surface, exactly what scientists would expect after thousands of years of accumulated peat and sediment. Notably, the bones were found clustered within a mass of fossilized plant material. This led researchers to hypothesize that the boy may have been buried in an ancient grassland, or possibly swept into the bog during a prehistoric flood. Today, the remains are being carefully preserved in cooperation with the National Museums Northern Ireland. Researchers are not only seeking to determine the exact cause of death, but also hope to uncover deeper insights into the society, culture, and living conditions of people in Northern Ireland thousands of years ago. An unnamed teenager, without a recorded identity or personal story, has become a key to unlocking a distant chapter of human history. So what do you think? Was this the result of an ancient burial ritual or simply a tragic accident of nature? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. The oldest royal skeleton in British history. You may have heard mysterious stories about human remains that were lost for centuries, and one of the most remarkable discoveries in recent years is the identification of what may be the oldest skeletal remains of the British royal family. However, this story is far more than a routine archaeological excavation. It is filled with historical secrets and long-missing pieces of the royal narrative that have never been fully revealed. So why is this set of remains so important? And could it truly belong to one of England's earliest queens, Queen Edgith? The story began when a team of archaeologists excavated an ancient coffin inside Magdeburg Cathedral in southern Germany. Inside the coffin, they discovered well-preserved skeletal remains of a woman estimated to have died between the ages of 30 and 40. Most striking of all, they also found a small tablet engraved with the name Edith. If you're not familiar with the name, Edith is the Old English form of Eadgyth, who was the sister of King Athelstan and the granddaughter of Alfred the Great, the king widely regarded as the founder of the Kingdom of England. But how can we be sure that these remains truly belong to Queen Edgith? Could this simply be a coincidence? Historically, Queen Edgith was an exceptionally important figure in early English history. She lived in the 10th century and was part of the very first royal family that played a decisive role in shaping what would eventually become modern England. However, in 1510, her remains were reportedly lost when they were moved to another burial site. To honor her memory, a monument was later erected inside Magdeburg Cathedral. Yet for more than 500 years, the true fate of her remains remained an unresolved mystery. Now, with the discovery of this skeleton inside the ancient coffin, archaeologists have strong reasons to believe they may have finally found Queen Edgith. While this identification remains a hypothesis, part of the puzzle is beginning to come into focus. The woman's estimated age at death and the engraved name Edith make the possibility increasingly compelling. Still, nothing can be confirmed with certainty until further scientific testing is completed. At present, the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom is conducting a series of detailed analyses on the bones to determine whether the remains belong to a member of the British royal family. Specifically, researchers are examining isotopic signatures within the skeleton and comparing them with isotopic data from regions where Queen Edgith is known to have lived, such as Wessex and Mercia. This is a critical step in confirming the identity of the remains, and if the results are positive, it would represent an archaeological discovery of immense historical value. Professor Mark Horton, one of the leading members of the research team, explained, "We know that the remains of early British royals were often moved multiple times. However, we are hopeful that the isotopic evidence from these bones will match the regions where Queen Edgith once lived." He added that if this identification is confirmed, it would rank among the most significant archaeological discoveries of recent years. So the question remains, are these truly the remains of Queen Edgith, or is this simply a remarkable coincidence in the long and complex history of the British monarchy? Regardless of the final outcome, the discovery has already opened a new door, allowing us to better understand the missing pieces of England's early royal past. And once the scientific examinations are complete, we may uncover not only a historical secret, but also an inspiring story of resilience, memory, and respect for the figures who helped lay the foundations of a nation. 3,800-year-old giant human remains discovered in Azerbaijan. Amid the windswept Seyrankol plain, where the land of Azerbaijan meets Georgia and Armenia, there lies an unassuming earthen mound that local residents casually refer to as a kurgan. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than an old hill forgotten by time. But with just one shovel strike from archaeologists, history suddenly rises up, standing nearly 6 feet 6 inches tall. When the excavation began, no one expected that beneath layers of silent soil undisturbed for millennia lay a grave dating back approximately 3,800 years. Even more astonishing was the identity of its occupant, a man who stood about 6 feet 6 inches tall, an extraordinary height for the Bronze Age, when the average human stature was far shorter than it is today. In the ancient world, this man would have truly appeared to be a giant. The grave was discovered within the Kashikchada Historical and Cultural Reserve, and its scale immediately caught archaeologists by surprise. The kurgan measures roughly 92 feet in diameter and rises over 6.5 feet high. It is clearly divided into 3 distinct sections by stone walls. The first section contains the remains of the deceased along with numerous grave goods. The second holds only pottery, while the third is completely empty, as if reserved for something intangible, something the living were never meant to touch. This division was not accidental. Researchers believe it reflects a deeply rooted belief in the afterlife. For these ancient people, death may not have been an end, but rather a doorway into another realm, one that required careful preparation, from weapons to food. The body of this giant was found in a partially flexed position, his hand still tightly gripping a bronze spearhead. This single detail evokes the image of a warrior who never relinquished his weapon, even in death. Adding to this impression, multiple bronze ornaments were discovered around his ankles, indicating that this man held a high status within his society. Not just anyone would be buried with weapons, jewelry, and such elaborate funeral rites. One particularly chilling detail was the presence of ceramic vessels containing cooked animal bones. This suggests that people at the time believed sustenance was necessary even in the afterlife. A warrior, after all, could not be allowed to go hungry, even beyond death. These seemingly small details reveal an entire belief system and a profound perspective on life and death held by people nearly 4,000 years ago. Based on the evidence, archaeologists speculate that the man buried here was not an ordinary warrior, but likely a leader, possibly even a military commander. His exceptional height, distinctive weapons, and elaborate burial rituals all combine to form the portrait of someone who commanded respect, both in life and long after his death. And what makes this discovery even more remarkable is that the kurgan lay undisturbed for thousands of years amid the endlessly blowing winds of the plain, as if guarding its own secret, waiting patiently for modern humans to listen. When the soil was finally removed, it was not only a giant who emerged into the light, but an entire fragment of ancient history revived, reminding us that the past is sometimes far greater than we ever imagined. 2,000-year-old jade and gold inlaid human remains of two saints in Germany. Hidden in the tranquil countryside of Germany near the bustling city of Munich stands Fürstenfeld Church, a magnificent Baroque architectural masterpiece that also safeguards a sacred, mysterious, and deeply haunting secret: the skeletal remains of Saint Hyacinth of Caesarea and Saint Clemens, two revered Christian martyrs. Enclosed within historic glass reliquaries, these skeletons are not merely remnants of the past. They are powerful witnesses to unwavering faith and tragic devotion, a faith for which both saints ultimately gave their lives. Saint Hyacinth, a name unfamiliar to many today, embodies a story that moves all who encounter it. He died in 108 AD at just 12 years old, an age when children today are still sitting in school classrooms. According to legend, the young Hyacinth was imprisoned and tortured in Rome for refusing to worship the gods of ancient Rome. Even when faced with death, he would not renounce his Christian faith. When forced to eat meat, considered forbidden within Christianity at the time, Hyacinth chose to starve himself, ultimately dying of hunger while remaining completely loyal to God. What makes his remains especially striking is the crown placed upon his skull and the lower jaw inlaid with precious stones, symbolizing both nobility and the extraordinary sacrifice of a saint who was still a child. Beside Saint Hyacinth rests the skeleton of Saint Clemens, an equally formidable historical figure. He died in Rome in 95 AD, executed by beheading, a brutal punishment imposed by the Roman Empire on those who steadfastly followed Christianity. Though his violent death occurred nearly 2 millennia ago, the remains of Saint Clemens have been carefully preserved within the church as a sacred relic, reminding humanity of the cost of religious freedom and the unbreakable strength of faith. Fürstenfeld Church itself, the guardian of these two relics, holds not only historical and religious significance, but is also tied to a powerful story of atonement. The church was commissioned in the mid-13th century by Louis II, Duke of Bavaria, under orders from Pope Alexander IV, as an act of repentance for the Duke's murder of his first wife. From the foundation of sin arose a place of reverence and devotion, serving as a reminder that light can emerge from darkness and that faith has the power to redeem even the most flawed souls. Today, visitors who step inside Fürstenfeld Church are not only awed by its magnificent architecture, but also enveloped by a profound sense of sanctity. Within its walls, the two skeletons silently continue to tell their stories of an age marked by violence, faith, and sacrifice. These are not merely stories of the past, but enduring reminders for the present that sometimes the most precious thing a human being can preserve is faith itself. Dear friends, the ancient world is always filled with fascinating wonders. It is not only about valuable artifacts being uncovered, but also about the long and complex process of history that lies behind them, waiting for us to dig deeper and discover. What do you think about today's topic? Which discovery impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our upcoming fascinating discoveries. For now, thank you for watching, and see you next time.